Chapter 4279. Towards the surrounding people's gazes and various speculations. Yiqing Luo didn't have any change in her emotions. Her expression was calm and there wasn't much change in her eyes. She didn't look at anyone else. Just like that, she looked at Qi Yan without blinking. Only Gu Yun, who was closest to Yiqing Luo, could tell. The young lady's expression was calm. But in the depths of her charming eyes that gazed deeply at Qi Yan, she hid her concern for Qi Yan. And the young lady's fists were clenched tightly under her sleeves. How could she not care about Qi Yan? She cared more than anyone else. The pain she was suffering right now was deeper than anyone else. Looking at Yiqing Luo in this state, Gu Yun's heart inexplicably surged with a feeling of heartache. Inexplicably, she wanted to believe that the young lady had her reasons for doing this. She would absolutely not allow Qi Yan to get hurt. Bam! Just at this moment, suddenly, a thunderous explosion erupted in front of them. The profound waves spread out at this moment. They were like turbulent waves, surging layer upon layer. The surroundings instantly exploded, pieces of shrapnel flying in all directions. Dust and profound wave curled up in spirals. Everyone could only vaguely see that enormous Xiong Batian waving its arms. A strange roar was coming out from its mouth. Everyone's ears were buzzing from this roar. Someone clicked his tongue. Look, when a god-grade magical beast unleashes its might, it's really extraordinary. No wonder it's Princess Xia Zhu, to be able to own such a powerful god-grade magical beast. That useless bird is going to suffer. Wouldn't it be in trouble if it met that kind of master? Everyone looked at that awe-inspiring Xiong Batian enviously, as their mouths were also praising Xiong Batian. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "No, no! Quickly look over there!" This tone seemed as though he had seen something unbelievable, as his voice was trembling from the shock. Everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. Instantly, shock, astonishment, disbelief appeared on everyone's faces. The dust and profound wave was blown away by the strong wind, revealing the indistinct figure of a huge bear beast. But what made everyone stunned was what they saw just now was Xiong Batian roaring and waving his arms. It was not Xiong Batian who was displaying his beast might. Instead, waving its thick bare paws, it scratched the bird on top of its head that looked like a ball of fire. Yes, scratching. It was scratching and slapping wildly. The roar coming from his mouth was a warning roar. The bird that was looked down upon by everyone and had no combat power at all flapped its wings and dodged Xiong Batian's paw again and again. Moreover, it was done in the most cunning way possible. Her posture was very elegant. It was as if he was strolling in the air, relaxed and leisurely. This is that useless bird, played with him? Xiong Batian couldn't catch a useless bird? This was what everyone was thinking. In their imagination, Xiong Batian should have directly slapped that useless bird into meat paste. Or he could turn the useless bird into a new toy. This was completely different from what they had imagined. There was such a huge disparity in strength. The result was actually unexpected. Obviously, Xiong Batian also noticed this. It roared more and more fiercely. Chapter 4280. As a beast, he had a natural sense of danger. Xiong Batian could feel an extremely strong sense of danger from the other party's small body. If the other party didn't die, it would be the one to die. It couldn't tell where its perception came from. It only knew that when it looked into the bird's eyes, every strand of hair on its body stood up subconsciously. Xiong Batian's beast eyes became more and more ruthless. The roar in his throat became more and more ferocious. "You ugly monster, you're so ugly, and you still have the nerve to be a human's war pet." Qi Yan flapped its wings and shouted. Xiong Batian growled, raised his feet, and stomped hard on the ground. His huge body soared into the air. It was like a towering mountain, crashing straight towards Qi Yan. So what if it can fly? Break its wings and see how it can fly. The anger in Xiong Batian's chest had already boiled to the extreme. When the thick bare paw slapped down on Qi Yan, it gathered a brown beast power. The beast light twisted out crazily. It turned into a sharp blade with a piercingly cold glint. The majestic pressure of the beast power condensed the surrounding air into ice. Xiong Batian, who soared into the air, used his body size to occupy almost the entire air. Qi Yan jumped high up in the air, and the majestic pressure of the beast power poured down. When she flapped her wings, it was as if there was something heavy pressing down on her wings. It was extremely difficult to stir it up. This greatly reduced Qi Yan's flexibility. From the beginning, Qi Yan used its nimble body and small and exquisite figure to deliberately confuse Xiong Batian's line of sight, while avoiding Xiong Batian's attack. At the same time, he quickly used his sharp beak to poke Xiong Batian's weakest point, for example eyes, and then use it to arouse its anger. Once Xiong Batian lost his mind, it had a chance to take advantage of it, but now Xiong Batian used his majestic beast power to directly seal its actions. At the same time, Xiong Batian growled. The thick bare paws and sharp claws shone with a cold light. It suddenly melted into Qi Yan's body. The energy of the brown beast power cut through the sky. Qi Yan's crimson eyes flashed. It flapped its wings fiercely. The heavy pressure made it extremely difficult for it to breathe. This time, that bird is dead for sure. The previous useless bird was a fluke. How can a battle pet that has no beast aura or combat abilities withstand the pressure of a beast at the divinity level? Some people marveled at Xiong Batian's bestial might. There were also some who took advantage of the situation and continued to smear Yiqing Luo's name. Like master, like war pet. You've already lost to me, yet you're still so arrogant. Without any strength, you only know how to brag with your mouth. A sentence of ridicule, and those voices of discussion, came into the ears of Qi Yan. At the bottom of Qi Yan's heart, he felt inexplicably irritated. The heavy pressure on its body made it even more irritated. Bang, the bare paw landed. The sound of the explosion was like a clap of thunder. At the same time, the ground began to spread out in all directions like a dense spider web. The speed at which it flapped its wings became faster and faster. When the bare paw fell, it flew out of the attack range of the bare paw. However, the majestic and dignified beast power shockwave sent Qi Yan flying. Qi Yan somersaulted several times in midair. After crashing into a huge ancient tree, it followed the ancient tree and rolled to the ground. Qi Yan. Chapter 4281. Yiqing Luo's body suddenly stiffened. She took a step forward. Her eyes stared at Qi Yan. But that little thing that fell to the ground. The pair of wings flapped again, turned into a stream of light, rushing towards the sky. Qi Yan's eyes were burning with a coquettish fire. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists, took a deep breath and suppressed the worry in her heart. She couldn't move, nor could she show any emotion. She couldn't affect Qi Yan, and she couldn't give others any room to think. This was a battle that belonged to Qi Yan. It had its own self-esteem and pride as one of the four sacred beasts. To take on this battle, it had to rely on itself to fight on. And only in this way, if Qi Yan could hold on perhaps, it could turn the situation around. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly. The hands under the sleeves clenched tighter. When the scarlet flames spun in the air, shaking its wings, its red eyes looked coldly at Xiong Batian. Trying to use beast power to suppress your master bird? Do you really think your master bird has an undeserved reputation? Yiqing Luo. Did it really think of itself as a bird? Had it forgotten its distinguished vermilion bird identity? As the arrogant words fell, Yi Zichen's expression changed. Qi Yan's figure suddenly darted. Its shadow flashed. Qi Yan actually appeared on Xiong Batian's nose in the blink of an eye. Its sharp beak mercilessly pecked into Xiong Batian's eyes. The giant Xiong Batian, and a palm-sized bird. Plus Xiong Batian didn't expect that the useless bird that was suppressed by its beast power would be so fast. This poke was very easy. Roar! Xiong Batian roared in pain, raised its paw and pressed its eyes. Its body was also very agile as it leaped backward. Bam! The huge body fell heavily on the ground. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The cracks in the ground cracked and collapsed. Xiong Batian covered its eyes, howling miserably. Qi Yan flapped its wings, not giving Xiong Batian a chance to breathe. Its figure was like a raging flame, charging straight towards Xiong Batian. Its small body. It was surging with extremely strong fluctuations. Ripples spread out in all directions. Xiong Batian was still covering his eyes, and had no time to care about Qi Yan. Princess Xia Zhu's face turned from a complacent expression to one of rage, especially after sensing the surging profound waves in the air. Her face was ashen as she shouted, "Xiong Batian! In front!" Xiong Batian's brown hair stood on end. After hearing Princess Xia Zhu's shout, the huge body trembled. He instinctively dodged it. The huge figure leaped up again. Although Xiong Batian's reaction was fast when he leaped into the air, he was unable to dodge the attack. But the waves of energy coming towards him, however, it brushed past its body. The powerful blast nearly sent Xiong Batian's towering mountain-like body flying. As he retreated, he naturally retreated to the area where the onlookers were gathered. Everyone was so shocked that they screamed and quickly moved away. For a moment the scene was extremely chaotic. Xiong Batian's body swayed. He could not stand steadily and fell to the ground with a bang. Gravel flew all over the ground. There were also a few onlookers who didn't manage to dodge in time and were directly crushed into minced meat by Xiong Batian. The entire street, there was a deathly silence. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in astonishment. Their jaws dropped to the ground in surprise. Chapter 4282. As for the red bird that was called Trash, when it spread its wings, it was extremely noble and elegant. Wait, that bird, when did it have such an extraordinary momentum? Clearly, just now, no matter how they looked at it, it was just an ordinary bird. How could there be such a great change in the blink of an eye? If it weren't for the fact that everyone had been staring at the duel between Qi Yan and Xiong Batian. They all had doubts. Did he change to a different bird halfway through? That bird actually defeated the god-level combat bear beast. Yes, defeated. Any one of the onlookers was an expert of the profound rank. Naturally they could see it. If it weren't for Princess Xia Zhu's reminder. Xiong Batian couldn't dodge Qi Yan's attack at all. It was very likely that he was not only blind in one eye. Even his life was lost here. That bird was actually so strong? Gu Yun's tightly clenched heart was finally relieved. She hurriedly said, "Since the outcome has been decided, Princess Xia Zhu, please accept your defeat." As she spoke, she wanted to take over Qi Yan. But before she could lift her foot, Xia Zhu screamed in a low voice, "What outcome has been decided? My Xiong Batian can still fight. It didn't lose." Then, she urged Xiong Batian in a stern and urgent voice, "Stand up for this princess. You can't even kill a stupid bird, what use do I have for you?" Her sharp and arrogant voice was like a death sentence. Xiong Batian, who was lying on the ground and howling miserably, trembled. Blood overflowed from the bear's clenched paw and dyed all its hair red. A fierce roar came from its mouth. His body was swaying, and he forced himself to stand up. That huge body. Every movement. It shook the already cracked ground. And the more he moved, Xiong Batian's eyes and chest, which had been injured by the wave just now, all felt a sharp pain. Behind him, Princess Xia Zhu was still gritting her teeth and shouting, giving orders. This made the onlookers look at Princess Xia Zhu with eyes full of condemnation. This Princess Xia Zhu was really too shameless, wasn't she? She didn't lose? One had to know, generally speaking. A duel between battle pets. The master must not intervene. This was almost an unwritten rule. However, Princess Xia Zhu reminded Xiong Batian and intervened when the two pets were fighting. This action was no different from admitting defeat. How could Princess Xia Zhu declare with righteous indignation that her battle pet hadn't lost and could still fight? Could it be that Princess Xia Zhu couldn't tell? Had Xiong Baishan's eyes been destroyed? Shouldn't he call his battle pets back to tend to their wounds? Battle pets were very good at self-healing. If he returned it to the pet space in time, Xiong Baishan's eyes might recover. But Princess Xia Zhu was still clamoring for Xiong Batian to continue fighting. He didn't care about his battle pets' lives, did he? What a powerful battle pet. He placed it in Princess Xia Zhu's hand. This was simply a waste of God's gift. Everyone understood. Their gazes changed from envy to contempt and disdain. What are you looking at? If you look again, this princess will ask my father to dig out your eyes. How could Princess Xia Zhu not understand the gazes of the people around her? She angrily roared at the crowd. He even raised his hand and pointed at the surroundings. Chapter 4283. Among the onlookers there were many people from large clans. Moreover, it was very likely that one of them would stand out. It was an unworldly expert. Ying was worried that her princess would accidentally offend the people from the large clans and offend an unworldly expert. At that time, it would be difficult to clean up the mess. However, Ying could not persuade her princess in public. Otherwise, with her princess's personality, she would definitely be the biggest attitude in the world. She could only try her best to appease Princess Xia Zhu. However, Princess Xia Zhu obviously did not understand Ying's good intentions. After hearing what was said, she shouted angrily, "Watching the show? Are you trying to make a fool out of me?" Don't think that she could not see it. Those people had clearly been mocking the first miss of the Gu clan earlier. But now, they were looking at her with such a hateful gaze. She was the first princess of the old city. Princess Xia Zhu, the most beloved of her father. How dare they mock her? Your Highness! Ying was frightened by Princess Xia Zhu's roar. She pulled her arm and called out softly. The surrounding people were already sneering. Isn't Princess Xia Zhu a joke? Instead of finding fault here, why don't you think about how to explain to the families of the two dead people why they died under the hands of your Highness, your war pet? Just now, when Xiong Batian fell. But he still crushed two profound practitioners to death. Heh! A dignified princess of the old city harassed Miss Gu on the street. She even tried to use force but was taught a lesson by Miss Gu. The god-tier combat bear beast he summoned couldn't even deal with a bird beast that had no combat power at all. Your Highness, you are really a joke. The onlookers roared with laughter. They did not hide their disdain for Princess Xia Zhu. You. Princess Xia Zhu had obviously never been treated like this. Her eyes were wide open. Ying was worried that Her Highness would make more mistakes. She quickly pressed Xia Zhu's hand. Your Highness, don't lower yourself to their level. Look at young Master Ren. If the poison in his body is not cured, I'm afraid he will not be able to endure it. Only Ren Jiaming's name. Only then could Her Majesty let go of everything. As expected, when Princess Xia Zhu heard Ren Jiaming's name, she immediately squatted down and caressed Ren Jiaming's face. Brother Ming, are you in pain again? How could Ren Jiaming have the strength to answer her? Panting heavily, his body twitched from time to time in pain. Princess Xia Zhu placed all her attention on Ren Jiaming. This scene caused the eyes of the onlookers who were mocking Xia Zhu to be filled with even more disdain. There were also some people who looked at Xiong Batian, who stood there with his hands over his eyes, his voice hoarse. She cared so much for an outsider. He had left the battle pet that had risked its life for him on the battlefield. The other side. The duel could already be considered over. When Princess Xia Zhu was focusing on Ren Jiaming, Qi Yan flapped its wings and flew back to Yiqing Luo. Gu Yun stared blankly at Qi Yan. He felt that Qi Yan's red phoenix feathers seemed to be coated with a layer of light. Obviously, from the outside, it looked no different from before. But somehow, he felt that something had changed. Gu Yun couldn't tell what kind of feeling this was. Qi Yan's speed. Seems to be faster than before. Gu Yun tried to probe. Chapter 4284. Previously, Qi Yan was just flying a little faster than ordinary birds. Now Qi Yan. It was almost as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, it came to Yiqing Luo. This speed, this was not normal. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and caught Qi Yan, holding its small body in her arms. She looked up at Gu Yun and smiled. My Qi Yan is more powerful. Gu Yun. What did powerful mean? What did it mean in which aspect? But Yiqing Luo obviously didn't intend to elaborate. Gu Yun didn't continue to ask. But her eyes couldn't help but move to Qi Yan. Yiqing Luo didn't stop it. Her slender fingers gently stroked the phoenix feathers on Qi Yan. The fine and soft phoenix feathers were overflowing with light and vibrant colors. It was completely different from the previous touch. She looked down and met Qi Yan's eyes. A smile appeared on her pink lips. Well done, Qi Yan, you're really great. Her pink lips opened slightly. Her voice was so low that even Gu Yun, who was standing next to her, didn't hear it. Only Qi Yan, who was looking at her, heard these words. Its red eyes were stained with a proud smile. Of course, don't you know who I am? The proud little guy raised his neck high, his eyes full of pride. Yiqing Luo chuckled. Yes, 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 you're the majestic grandpa bird. Now Qi Yan in the battle with Xiong, it broke through the blood-bone barbaric king's power blockade. The reason why it was so easy. It was because when Qi Yan accepted the challenge, when Yiqing Luo touched it, she took the opportunity to feed the only pill that could open up the body to the greatest extent and quickly absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth into Qi Yan's mouth. Even Qi Yan itself didn't know. It only knew. After it accepted the challenge, there had been a warm current flowing in its body, constantly rushing back and forth in its body. It always had a kind of. Once a place in its body was hit by the warm current, it could recover to its power as a sacred beast. And this verification, after it was directly sent flying by Xiong, it was confirmed. When his body crashed into the ancient tree, his internal organs felt as if they had been shattered. That warm current seemed to have found a place to vent. Ka! His head buzzed for a moment. Following that, it felt an endless stream of beast power spreading throughout its body. It was the power of its holy beast. The beast power that belonged to the vermilion bird had returned. Although the beast energy recovered was less than a third of what it was before. It was also unable to freely change its body size like before. However, against a deity-level magical beast, it was impossible. It was more than enough. However, at the end of the day, the medicinal pills which Yiqing Luo had given him were merely supplementary in nature. Scarlet Flame could recover 1/3 of its power. This was Qi Yan, relying on his own willpower to hold on. If it had been intimidated by Xiong Baishan's beast might from the very beginning, it would have died. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the current outcome. Such a big thing had happened. Xia Zhu's battle pet had smashed 2 profound practitioners from different family forces to death. More things were involved in this matter. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to waste any more time here. He took out a medicine bottle from his bosom and put it in Gu Yun's hand. Gu Yun didn't have time to react, only to see Yiqing Luo's vision sweeping towards Ren Jianming's direction. Gu Yun understood. Chapter 4285. Before she got close, Xia Zhu looked at Gu Yun vigilantly. What do you want to do? Gu Yun handed the bottle to Yuing. Our first miss is kind and won't care about Princess Xia Zhu's rudeness. Although Princess Xia Zhu lost this duel, this antidote was given to you by our first Mississippi. Gu Yun slightly raised her chin. Her attitude was very arrogant. Her words made Yu Ying's face as dark as the bottom of a pot. Princess Xia Zhu was even more furious when she heard this. I didn't lose. Gu Yun coldly smiled, the corners of her mouth twitching. Whether or not you lost, your highness knows very well in your heart. This servant is only following orders to give this antidote to your highness. If your highness is not willing to accept First Miss Good Intentions, this servant will report back to First Mississippi. Saying this, she put away the antidote and turned to leave. Wait. Princess Xia Zhu immediately spoke, her expression ugly as she stared at the bottle in Gu Yun's hand. Is this Brother Ming's antidote? Gu Yun's mouth twitched, as if she had already guessed that Princess Xia Zhu would do this. She turned around and said with a smile, Yes. Give the antidote to me. Princess Xia Zhu pursed her lips and stretched out her hand. Gu Yun didn't move. She continued with a smile. Your Highness, this is specially given to you by our First Miss out of kindness. Shouldn't your Highness thank First Miss? She deliberately emphasized the words, kind, and used the honorific, Your Highness. It made Xia Zhu's heart feel suffocated. Her expression darkened as she glared at Gu Yun. My precious body is willing to accept her antidote. It is her honor. And you want me to thank her? Don't even think about it. Gu Yun decisively put the bottle into her sleeve. I'm afraid First Miss doesn't need such an honor. Gu Yun. Princess Xia Zhu's face was livid as she shouted Gu Yun's name. Don't think that you can stand on my head just because you have the First Miss of the Gu residence to support you. If what happened today reaches Royal Father's ears, do you think the Gu residence will sacrifice a servant girl to protect the relationship between the imperial family and the Gu residence? Gu Yun's expression didn't change. She wasn't moved by Princess Xia Zhu's threat. She knew better than anyone how much Lord Bone Lord doted on eldest Mississippi. Even the dominoes were given to eldest Mississippi. She had eldest young Miss to back her up, so of course she had nothing to fear. Although they did not spend much time together, Gu Yun was very clear about this. As long as he treated eldest Miss sincerely, eldest Miss would definitely not let anything happen to her. Even if something really happened, she had nothing to fear. If she could sacrifice herself for the Bone residence, she would not shirk her duty. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo's voice rang out. Gu Yun, let's go. Yes, eldest Miss. Gu Yun restrained the thoughts in her eyes and was about to leave. How could Princess Xia Zhu let Gu Yun leave like this? She shouted, Gu Yun, stop. You're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to leave. She shouted in a low voice while giving Yu Ying a meaningful look. Yu Ying's figure flashed and appeared in front of Gu Yun. Gu Yun's eyes turned cold. Move aside. Hand over the antidote. Yu Ying pursed her lips, her face full of vigilance. In terms of strength, she was inferior to Gu Yun. If Gu Yun made a move, she wasn't sure if she could stop Gu Yun. Not waiting for Gu Yun to open her mouth, Yi Qing Luo's serene and elegant voice rang again. Princess Xia Zhu's attitude really makes me unhappy, and I really can't feel Princess Xia Zhu's urgency for the antidote. Chapter 4286. Since Princess Xia Zhu is not in a hurry, we can talk about the antidote when I'm in a better mood. Princess Xia Zhu's pupils constricted. The facial features on his face became distorted with anger. She gritted her teeth, and a cold glint flashed in her eyes. Yi Qing Luo totally didn't bother about her venomous gaze, as she maintained her contented expression. Ren Jiaming's body suddenly twitched even more violently. A thin layer of sweat drenched his robe. His handsome face was filled with pain. Princess Xia Zhu hugged Ren Jiaming's body, her heart aching. She gritted her teeth and said, What do you want? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. What do you want in order to give me the antidote? Princess Xia Zhu gritted her teeth and asked. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes with an innocent look. Haven't I already given you the antidote? Her Highness refused, didn't she? Xia Zhu's face darkened, alternating between green and white. Her chest seemed to be filled with endless anger. Apparently, Gu Yun's arrogant words earlier were all under Yi Qing Luo's instructions. In other words, if she didn't lower her head, Yi Qing Luo wouldn't give her the antidote. If Yi Qing Luo was unwilling, she couldn't even think about touching the antidote. Looking at the pale face of her beloved man in her arms, Xia Zhu forcefully closed her eyes and quickly said, Thank you, eldest miss. With that, her face darkened and she stretched out her hand. Give me the antidote. Gu Yun was surprised. Did your highness thank me just now? This servant doesn't seem to have heard it. Her highness' sincerity. Eldest miss can't see it either. Princess Xia Zhu's face darkened even more. Did she have to be humble again? Obviously, that was the case. Judging from Gu Yun's attitude, it was as if she was waiting for her to thank her again. Princess Xia Zhu clenched her fists and said word by word, "This princess sincerely thanks First Miss for your help. This princess is very grateful." As soon as she finished speaking, Princess Xia Zhu's face darkened. Between his brows there was a chilling, killing intent. Gu Yun took a glance at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo nodded her head lightly. Then, with a magnanimous look on her face, she took out the antidote. Your Highness, there's no need to stand on ceremony. Who asked our First Miss to be so kind? Xia Zhu's hand pinched her own flesh tightly. She lowered her head in silence. Yuing hurriedly took the antidote. Gu Yun raised her chin up high as she turned around and walked towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo calmly looked at Xia Zhu before he left with Gu Yun. Then, he threw a palm-sized medicine bag in Xiong Baishan's direction. No one could see clearly where she took out the packet of medicine from, although there was something wrong with Xiong Baishan's eyes. However, as a beast, its instincts were sharp enough to sense that something was approaching. It stretched out its paw. The medicine bag fell into his palm. In his ears, the girl's faint voice sounded, "Your master doesn't care about you, but you still have to care about yourself. Even if you're a magical beast, you're a magical beast with your own thoughts." Just as Xiong Batian was about to throw the medicine bag away, he froze. A low growl came from its throat. However, the person on the other side did not speak again. Instead, he took Gu Yun and left directly. When the crowd saw them, they automatically opened up a path. Xiong Batian put the medicine bag to his nose and sniffed. He couldn't tell what it was. Chapter 4287. Its sharp claws tore the medicine packet. A pile of powder fell into its palm. Without any hesitation, it pressed the powder on its injured eye. The powder entered its eye. The sharp pain made Xiong Batian let out a shrill cry. Following this, the enormous figure turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared before the crowd's eyes. This scene, everyone in the surroundings was stunned. Just now, what medicine packet did Lady Gu of the Gu residence give Xiong Batian? Xiong Batian just pressed it onto its eye? What was going on? Where did Xiong Batian go? It didn't seem like he had returned to the pet space. Could it be that Xiong Batian had betrayed them? That was impossible. Usually, battle pets that had formed a blood contract could not leave their master. As long as their master summoned them, they would return to their master no matter how far away they were. Everyone was filled with shock and confusion. But Princess Xia Zhu didn't seem to notice that her battle pet had left. She stared unblinkingly at the two figures in front of her, who were gradually getting further and further away. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. The surging anger seemed to want to burn away all of her rationality. When everyone saw this, they didn't know what to feel in their hearts. Princess Xia Zhu didn't even care where Xiong Batian went. They were just bystanders. What right did they have to care? The coldness in Princess Xia Zhu's eyes seemed to have frozen the air around her. The killing intent in her eyes seemed to want to devour everyone. Yuing was terrified. She had served the princess for many years, but this was the first time she had seen the princess so angry. Her highness was not to be blamed. The people from the Gu residence had indeed gone too far. But they couldn't afford to cause any more trouble in the current situation. Yuing squatted down next to Princess Xia Zhu and whispered, "Your Highness, please detoxify the poison in young Master Ren's body first. When we return to the palace, we will explain this to the Emperor." Princess Xia Zhu's hand trembled. He forcefully suppressed the anger that was squeezing in his chest. Yes, Brother Ming's health was the most important. Detoxifying the poison in Brother Ming's body was the most important thing. This vengeance, when she returned to the palace, she would ask her father to avenge her. Princess Xiaozhu took the medicine bottle and opened it. It was another indescribable smell. The smell was even more unpleasant than the liquid that Princess Xiaozhu had drunk previously. Xiaozhu was completely unable to describe what kind of smell this was. Her face instantly turned ashen. Did that bitch do it on purpose? What antidote could be so smelly? She was stinky, and so was Ren Jianming. If it wasn't intentional, then her name, Gong Xiaozhu, would be written upside down. Yu Ying's expression was also very complicated. However, looking at her own princess, she still advised in a low voice, since she dared to take out the antidote in front of everyone, this antidote must be real. Let's detoxify the antidote first. Young Master Ren looks like he can't hold on much longer. Hearing the last sentence, Princess Xiaozhu gritted her teeth and poured the antidote into Ren Jianming's mouth. An indescribable stench overflowed from Ren Jianming's mouth. The entire street was filled with an unpleasant stench. The onlookers couldn't help but cover their mouths and noses. After taking the antidote, Ren Jianming's body finally stopped twitching. His tightly knitted eyebrows also gradually relaxed. Ugh, the piercing pain in Ren Jianming's body finally stopped. Chapter 4288. He was suffocated by the stench, and it was extremely difficult for him to breathe. He couldn't bear it any longer as he suddenly opened his eyes. Brother Ming. After feeding him the antidote, Xiaozhu kept staring at Ren Jianming intently. The minute she saw Ren Jianming's eyes open, Xiaozhu pounced on his chest with an agitated expression. But, the minute he opened his mouth was filled with a rotten stench, almost making Ren Jianming faint from the choking. Unfortunately, the owner of that stench didn't have any self-awareness, seeing that he didn't speak for a long time. Instead, she leaned in closer. In his mouth, the stench of various feces and rotting corpses became even more intense. Green veins popped out on Ren Jianming's forehead as he raised his hand and pushed Xiaozhu away. Xiaozhu hadn't reacted in time when she was pushed away by an extremely strong force. Her body was unstable as she fell onto the ground in a disheveled state. She sat on the ground in a daze as she looked at Ren Jianming in disbelief. Brother Ming. Why did he suddenly push her? Didn't he know how much she had suffered because of him? Ren Jianming didn't feel that there was anything wrong with his own actions. He speedily stood up, and as he tidied up his messy robe, he swept his gaze around the surroundings. After he didn't discover the person whom he wanted to see, he then turned his gaze towards Xiaozhu. Where is she? That she was naturally referring to Yiqing Luo. Xiaozhu's heart was throbbing in pain. She met Ren Jianming's eyes without saying a word. Ren Jianming's brows creased tightly as he repeated, I'm asking you, where is she? This sentence, his tone became heavier. On his face, there was an obvious impatience. The man's attitude completely made Xiaozhu's tensed-up emotions collapse. Her eyes were scarlet red as she howled in a sobbing tone, Where is she? Where is she? Brother Ming, do you only know how to ask this one sentence? I'm telling you, she's gone. Left without any hesitation. She doesn't care whether you're dead or alive. She's such a vicious woman, what's there for you to care about? You saved her, but she poisoned you. She made you suffer so much, why are you still thinking about her? Do you know? In order to save you, I even threw away my dignity as a princess. If it weren't for me, the poison in your body wouldn't have been cured at all. Xiaozhu roared hysterically. As he roared, his voice choked with sobs, and tears covered his entire face. She was hysterical. Her accusation. This caused the man's face to darken. Xiaozhu thought that he had listened to her words. However, in the next instant, the man's sullen shout completely shattered all of Xiaozhu's dreams. Who asked you to detoxify me? I was poisoned on purpose to get close to her. Ren Jianming pointed at Xiaozhu and scolded angrily. Then, he didn't even look at Xiaozhu. With a leap, he had already disappeared in front of everyone. Princess Xia Zhu was left sitting on the ground in a daze. He was so stiff that he couldn't move. Yu Ying's heart ached when she saw this. She knelt down beside Xia Zhu and said, "Your Highness, Yu Ying, tell me, don't you think this princess is really like a joke?" Xia Zhu asked in a hoarse voice. For Ren Jianming, she could even throw away her dignity. She could bow down to Yiqing Luo. But, in the end, not only did Ren Jianming not give her a word of concern. Instead, he blamed her for being a busybody. Her busybody? If it wasn't for the fact that she loved him so much, if it wasn't for the fact that she couldn't bear to see him getting hurt. Chapter 4289. Carrying Qi Yan, Yiqing Luo, who was on her way back to the Bone residence, suddenly sneezed. Gu Yun asked with concern, "Has eldest miss caught a cold?" "I'm fine." Yiqing Luo touched her neck. This feeling was probably someone talking bad about her behind her back. Gu Yun pursed her lips and said worriedly, "Eldest miss, aren't you worried that Princess Xia Zhu will inform the emperor about this?" Even though he was far away from the crowd, the expression on Yiqing Luo's face was still that carefree expression. "Isn't this inevitable?" Yiqing Luo tilted her head and took a look at Gu Yun. Based on her character, she would definitely ask that emperor to seek revenge for her. Moreover, even if she doesn't complain, the emperor will know about this matter. So, what is there to worry about? She and Princess Xia Zhu's quarrel could be said to have caused a great commotion. More than half of the street had been destroyed. It even crushed 2 profound practitioners to death. How could the emperor not know about it? Hearing this, Gu Yun's expression changed. If the emperor wants to intervene, Bone Lord isn't in the mansion. This matter might be very troublesome. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. This emperor, what is his identity? As a newcomer, Yiqing Luo didn't know the rules of the Heaven Realm. He also did not know what the position of the emperor that Gu Yun spoke of was in the Heaven Realm. After all, the rules of every realm were different. The branch offices were also different. For example, the Nirvana realm had 4 continents and 4 kings, but they were restricted by the 4 great sections. For example, the Earth domain had 3 main cities and the Ling Long Palace. Apart from the 3 main cities' city lords and the Ling Long Palace's palace lord, there was also an earthly sovereign who was in charge of the entire Earth domain. Then, what was the position of the Emperor of the Heaven Realm? Gu Yun looked at Yiqing Luo strangely, as though she didn't understand why Yiqing Luo would ask this question. However, he still suppressed the curiosity in his heart and replied, "The Emperor is the Emperor of the Heaven Realm. The Gong clan of the royal family can be said to be the most respected people in our Heaven Realm." Yiqing Luo. In other words, Sky Emperor? At first, she had thought that the Emperor Gu Yun was talking about he was probably referring to a city lord of an ancient city in the Heaven Realm. This was equivalent to the city lords of Shadowless City, without Yen City, and without Embroiling City in the Earth domain. Unexpectedly, this Emperor of the Heaven Realm, he was referring to the Emperor of the entire Heaven Realm. It was similar to the position of the Earth King in the Earth Realm. Yiqing Luo indicated that she was trembling, bowing down to the big shots. However, eldest miss need not worry. Bone Lord's power is definitely not inferior to the Emperor's. Even if the Emperor wants to touch you, he wouldn't dare to do so out of respect for Bone Lord. Seeing that Yiqing Luo didn't say a word, Gu Yun immediately appeased her. Moreover, Bone Lord had passed the bone token to eldest young Mississippi. Eldest young miss has the entire Gu residence as her backing, so the Emperor wouldn't dare to touch you. The coming days will be tough. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue. It would indeed be tough. She was brought to the Heaven Realm by the barbaric Blood Bone King. Her identity had spread throughout the Heaven Realm, but no one had ever seen her. Just like that, she snatched away the title of the number 1 woman that Gong Xiazhu fancied the most, and attracted the interest of all the profound practitioners. Then, as soon as he appeared, he ruthlessly slapped Gong Shiju's face. This was also indirectly slapping the royal family in the face. No matter what, the emperor wanted to regain his face. He would definitely take action. In addition to the matter of the death of 2 cultivators, Gong Xiaozhu would probably push half of the responsibility to her. Chapter 4290. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she stretched out her hand and placed it on Gu Yun's shoulder. Even if he's not around, isn't there still me? Are you worried that I can't protect you? Gu Yun hurriedly shook her head. Eldest Miss was personally chosen by Bone Lord. This servant naturally believes in Eldest Mississippi. Your expression doesn't look like you believe me. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at her, her eyes filled with craftiness. Now you know how to be afraid? When you were facing the princess just now, you were quite imposing. Gu Yun's face suddenly turned red. This servant was just, I'm not blaming you. Yiqing Luo patted her on the shoulder. You've done very well, I like your arrogance, very much like my style. Well done, continue to work hard. Gu Yun's face turned even redder. To be my person, you must maintain today's imposing manner, do you understand? Yiqing Luo replied. Gu Yun nodded. This servant will remember. Her voice was soft. Looking at Yiqing Luo's gaze, there was a different emotion. This young miss, she was really different from the rich young ladies she had seen before. In front of Yiqing Luo, she could feel it. Yiqing Luo didn't treat her as a servant, a person to dispatch. Instead, he treated her as one of his own, as a friend. Thinking of this, Gu Yun's heart softened a little. "Oh right, Gu Yun." Yiqing Luo let go of Gu Yun and continued walking forward as she asked, "Towards the matters of the 4 great heavenly families, do you have any understanding?" When Gu Yun heard this, she immediately replied, "The position of the 4 great Tian families in the heaven realm is on par with the emperor. Both sides maintain a superficial balance." How is the relationship between the 4 great sky families? Yiqing Luo understood that these 4 great sky families were similar to the 4 great sects when she was in Nirvana realm. The 4 great Tian families have always supported each other. There has never been any struggle for power or any conflict of interest. Gu Yun suddenly paused. She pondered for a moment, then suppressed her voice and quietly said, "However, according to the information that the Gu residence has arranged outside, this servant has heard that the 4 great families have been in constant internal strife recently. It seems that some decision has attracted the disapproval of a few families." Yiqing Luo didn't believe that there would be any mutual support between the large families. Can live in peace. It was just that he hadn't really harmed his own interests yet. The disputes that followed were endless. It was very likely that there was a great disparity in benefits, which led to internal strife. Therefore, there was no such thing as an absolutely stable partnership. The most important thing was whether or not he could achieve the benefits he wanted. "Eldest Miss, you don't have to worry about the Ren family. Even though the Ren family's second young master has outstanding talent and is the Ren family's favorite, the Ren family will not go to the extent of becoming enemies with the Gu residents for the sake of the Ren family's second young master." Gu Yun's words were filled with brainless confidence towards Gu Jun. Yiqing Luo really wanted to know. Just what kind of position did the Blood-Bone Barbarian King and the Bone Mansion occupy in the Heaven Realm? Why did Gu Yun's words sound like the most powerful people in the entire Heaven Realm were all afraid of the Bone Mansion? The most powerful forces in the entire Heaven Realm were all afraid of the Bone Mansion. The entire Heaven Realm was afraid of the Bone Mansion. Yiqing Luo. Alright, in any case, the Bone Mansion was the most awesome existence. It was better to return to the Bone Residence and sort out the matters of the Heaven Realm first. She had to think of a way to undo the seal placed in her body by the barbaric Blood-Bone King. She needed to recover her strength. He had to get in touch with Ah Xian as soon as possible. Chapter 4291. Furthermore, in this Heaven Realm where experts ran amok, there were experts everywhere. If she didn't have profound energy to protect her, she had to bear the title of the young miss of the Gu residence. There were many people who wanted her dead. She couldn't always hide behind others and rely on their protection. Relying on others, how could he be more reliable than relying on himself? After returning to the Bone residence, the first thing Yiqing Luo did was to make a list and passed it to Gu Yun. Gu Yun glanced over. There were all kinds of miscellaneous herbs that didn't seem to be precious. Since she was young, Gu Yun had also received basic medical knowledge. But when he looked at the list, he saw the rows of names of the herbs. Gu Yun really couldn't tell what effect these herbs had when combined together. However, she didn't ask any further. He immediately went to arrange this matter. When Gu Yun returned, Yiqing Luo immediately asked Gu Yun to rummage through the Gu residence's warehouse to see if there were any better quality pill furnaces. Gu Yun couldn't hold back her curiosity. Young miss wants to refine pills? Yiqing Luo nodded her head. I don't have a lot of medicinal pills on me, so I need to prepare some more in case of emergencies. All the elixirs that she had refined were stored in the profound phoenix ring. The Blood-Bone Barbarian King should also know about the connection between the Netherworld Phoenix Ring and the Netherworld Dragon Ring. She could not establish any connection with the Phoenix Ring. Not to mention taking things out of the profound Phoenix Ring. The poison that she poisoned Gong Xiaozhu and Ren Jiaming on the street just now was from the space pocket that she kept on her a long time ago. Normally, he had the profound Phoenix Ring and the Azure Dew bracelet to move around. She didn't need a dimensional pocket. The only space pocket she had on her was something that those youngsters in the World Group had forced her to bring along. She had always carried it with her and had never opened it to see what was inside. Unexpectedly, in other words, this space pocket let her show off for the first time in this heaven realm where experts were as numerous as the clouds. She should thank the brother who forced her to carry the space pocket with her. However, after all, the space in the interspatial pocket wasn't much. It was filled with all sorts of poisons, but most of it was medicine for external and internal injuries. Yiqing Luo had no profound energy now. The only thing that could protect him was poison. He had to refine a higher quality, colorless and odorless poison himself. After all, as the young miss of the Gu residence, the news of her using poison today would spread throughout the entire heaven realm. Other people would definitely be on their guard when interacting with her. The poison in the space pocket was not very useful. Gu Yun quickly went to make arrangements. In the following days, Yiqing Luo squatted in the pill refining room that Gu Yun had specially arranged for her, refining various kinds of poisons. She did not have profound energy, but she had scarlet flame. Qi Yen, who had recovered a third of his beast power, opened his mouth and spat out the flame. Using it to refine pills was much better than using her profound strength to refine pills. On top of that, Gu Yun had arranged for her to purchase the best medicinal ingredients and pill furnaces. The refining process was rather smooth. 5 days later, Yiqing Luo walked out from the pill refining room with an ashen face. Gu Yun, who was always guarding the door, was actually not there. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept across the surroundings. He could vaguely sense that there were 2 people in the dark. It was probably Gu Yi and Gu San. Ever since that day on the streets when she kept Gu Yi's Dark Guard captain's wooden token, these 2 people were still abiding by Blood-Bone Barbaric King's orders, secretly guarding her. But, in the dark. Chapter 4292. Previously, when the 2 of them were hiding in the dark, she wouldn't be able to find out at all. Now, even though she was someone without any profound energy, she could still faintly sense their aura. If they didn't do it on purpose. She didn't believe it. But Yiqing Luo didn't bother about those 2. Just as Zhang Xian was about to return to his room to tidy himself up, a voice suddenly rang out. A clamor came from the front. Following that, about 5 to 6 people walked over in unison. The one walking at the front had a solemn expression and was talking to the people behind him in a righteous manner. However, it couldn't stop those people from advancing. Among those few people, Yiqing Luo spotted a familiar figure. Gong Shizhu. The 5 people behind him were the awe-inspiring middle-aged man and the white-haired old man. Seeing that Gong Xiezhu was among them, the few of them charged forward aggressively. Yiqing Luo also knew that they came with ill intentions. Their pace was extremely fast. He saw Yiqing Luo standing in front. Gu Yun's expression changed slightly as she said something to those few people and hastened her footsteps towards Yiqing Luo. "Eldest young miss. What's the matter?" Yiqing Luo raised her chin towards those people behind her. Gu Yunma pursed her lips. "It's still because of Princess Xiaozhu." She quickly told him what had happened in the past few days in a concise and comprehensive manner. It was probably she had been concocting pills for a few days. Gong Xiezhu had been causing trouble all this time. Using her status as a princess, she forcefully pushed the blame of the cultivator who was crushed to death by Xiong Batian to Yiqing Luo. Then, in front of the emperor, she tearfully complained about her grievances and the face she had lost that day. In addition, there were rumors among the people. The emperor was furious. Then, he thoroughly investigated the matter. It was discovered that the second young master of the Gu clan had also been humiliated by the young miss of the Gu clan. Then, he joined forces with the Ren family. As a result, a royal family, 2 clans with profound practitioner forces that had died, and the Ren family were all clamoring for the young lady of the Gu family to give them an explanation. But Yiqing Luo had been refining pills these few days. He refused to meet her at the door. The entire Gu residence would not be able to give them any explanation. Wasn't this looking down on the imperial power? Wasn't this looking down on the other forces? Everyone was enraged. Under Gong Xiezhu's instigation. He was valiant and high-spirited, directly charging in with Gong Xiezhu. Following that, was what Yiqing Luo was looking at right now. After Yiqing Luo heard this, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. These people spoke in a dignified manner. What kind of explanation did they want? To put it bluntly, it was just that the imperial family found it hard to accept the Gu mansion's actions in the Heaven Realm. Furthermore, the other factions were more or less respectful and resentful towards the Bone Mansion. This time, he was just using it as a pretext to make a fuss. His main purpose was to suppress the Bone Residence's prestige while Bone Lord was not around. Most importantly, he wanted to investigate the background of the young miss of the Bone Residence. As soon as Gu Yun finished speaking, a few people walked over. At the very front, Gong Xiezhu's eyes were filled with viciousness. Her lips curled as she sneered, "First young miss of the Gu clan, long time no see." Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she didn't bother about her. Instead she swept a glance at the few of them. Did this group of people run over to the Gu residence to create trouble? Gong Xiezhu's expression sunk as a sliver of embarrassment flashed past her eyes. That old man standing behind Gong Xiezhu slowly opened his mouth. "Eldest young miss of the Gu residence. Eldest young miss should be clear of our motive for coming here." Chapter 4293. The old man pulled a long face and tried to suppress his anger. A few days ago, the young lady and her Royal Highness's battle pet caused the deaths of our young masters. He paused, his voice suddenly rising. "Don't tell me. Eldest miss shouldn't give us an explanation?" When Yiqing Luo heard that, her expression didn't have the slightest change, as she shot him a glance with a smile which didn't look like a smile. "Your young master's death, what has it got to do with me? Someone from your family died, and you're asking me for an explanation? Am I your father? No. Am I your mother?" His words were like a heavy slap to the old man's face. The old man's face immediately flushed red. His face was ashen. Is this the upbringing of the Gu residence? Upbringing is also for people. Yiqing Luo disagreed. Do you think you can be considered as human? Why should she be nice to people who came to find trouble with her? Would they stop looking for trouble if he gave them a good attitude? Yiqing Luo's words directly scolded those few people on the opposite side. The few of them looked at each other with extremely ugly expressions. They had heard that the young miss of the Gu residence had a temper that was not to be trifled with. Moreover, she was extremely arrogant and despotic. After seeing the man, he was even better than the rumors. First young miss of the Gu clan. Gong Xiaozhu took a step forward as she looked at Yi Qing Luo with a venomous gaze. The reason why we're here today is merely to seek an explanation for the matter that day. Eldest young miss is so overbearing. Could it be that you have a guilty conscience? Seeing Yi Qing Luo, the hatred in her heart surged up. The humiliation she had suffered in Yi Qing Luo's hands that day, she wanted to make Yi Qing Luo pay back bit by bit. Yi Qing Luo glanced at her disapprovingly as her smile was filled with ridicule. What am I guilty of? As for what happened that day, the onlookers will naturally know. What explanation do I need to give you? She looked at the others as if she was looking at an idiot. With just a few words, you managed to incite the representatives of the clan to come to the Bone residence to demand an explanation. Are you all stupid? The people who were treated like fools. Why was this girl so happy to criticize the heavens and the earth? They naturally knew what had happened that day. Since they would represent the clan and follow Gong Shizhu to the Gu residence, it was impossible for them to do so. Naturally, it was the will of the family. His goal wasn't just for what had happened that day. However, when it came from the mouth of the first miss of the Gu residence, it was as if the first miss of the Gu residence. Did that make them fools who could be incited at will? Eldest young miss, since the lords have come, they have naturally investigated thoroughly. You still want to quibble? Gong Shizhu sneered. Just the fact that you poison me and Brother Ming is enough for you to pay with your life. He mentioned the word poison. The old man's face darkened even more. Even his eyes revealed a ferocious look that could not be ignored. The others also stared furiously at Yi Qing Luo. Shrouded by several pairs of gloomy eyes, the young girl's expression didn't change. Instead, her pink lips curled into a mocking smile. Pay with my life? Yi Qing Luo sneered. Then why don't you try? I also want to see how you are going to take my life. Gong Shizhu clenched her fists so tightly that her fingertips turned slightly white. Bone Lord is not in the heaven realm. How long do you think you can be arrogant for? Chapter 4294. Who are you calling flustered and exasperated? Gong Xiaozhu couldn't control her own emotions as her fingernails almost broke her palms. Her venomous eyes stared deadly at Yi Qing Luo. The unwillingness in her heart spread throughout her chest. Obviously, the young lady was in a sorry state. Her face was covered in dust. On that face, there were patches of black marks which looked extremely comical. The clothes on her were in a mess. Her skirt was stained with dust and charcoal. She looked like a refugee who escaped from the famine. But why, when the young lady smiled and raised her head, even she felt pressured by that awe-inspiring and oppressive aura. Gong Xiaozhu wasn't willing to admit it, but she had to admit it. The eldest young miss of the Gu residence was born to stand on a high position. Thinking of this, she clenched her fists tightly and tightened her grip. I have nothing to say to you. Yi Qing Luo knocked on her sore arm as her entire body was sticky and extremely uncomfortable. Gu Yun, send the guests off. Wasting time with these people. Why not go to the hot spring room to tidy herself up? Eldest young miss. The few of them immediately walked past Gu Yun and stood in a row in front of Yi Qing Luo. Eldest young miss. Bone Lord is not in the residence now, so you are the master of the Gu residence. Don't you feel that? Your current actions are bringing shame to the Gu residence? Yi Qing Luo's gaze was fixed on the person who spoke. It was a middle-aged man who stood on the right side of Gong Xiaozhu. Looking at his dressing and temperament, he should be someone from some family who was in charge of some small places. As a representative, he was sent to test her bottom line. He could be considered as cannon fodder. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with a teasing smile. Are you lecturing me? Bringing shame to the Gu residence? She wanted to play with the Gu residence till it was ruined, all right? Why would she be afraid of the Gu residence's reputation? The middle-aged man was questioned by Yiqing Luo in a cold tone as his heart trembled as he stuttered, "No, I don't dare. I just saw that eldest young Miss is young and arrogant, so I reminded eldest young Mississippi," Yiqing Luo sneered. "You said it yourself. I am the current master of the Gu residence. I can do whatever I want and it has nothing to do with you. If you don't like my way of doing things, then scram from the Gu residence." "You." The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and raised his hand to point at Yiqing Luo. But as soon as he raised his hand, he gritted his teeth and put it down. "You're simply unreasonable." This was no longer a problem that could be explained with the word arrogance. This girl was extremely hostile to all of them. As long as he opened his mouth, he would be unable to defend himself. Gu Yun, who was standing by Yiqing Luo's side, was stunned by this valiant Yiqing Luo. After getting along with each other for some time, Gu Yun also knew that Yiqing Luo wasn't such a flamboyant person. There must be a reason why she was so rude and unforgiving in her words. Gu Yun didn't show any abnormalities either. Gong Shiju's red lips were tightly pursed into a straight line as she said word by word, "Eldest young Mrs. Guilty look is rather laughable. Are you that afraid that we will ask about what happened that day?" Eldest young Miss kept on changing the topic, showing an impatient attitude to talk to us. "Is it because you don't dare to talk to us?" The few of them's expressions changed slightly as the way they looked at Yiqing Luo had a subtle change. Chapter 4295. The Gong Xia Zhu they met a few days ago didn't seem to have any brains. The current Gong Xia Zhu actually had a brain? She even knew how to use such a method to create advantageous conditions for herself. If she continued to go against the heavens and earth, refusing to talk to them, this would then prove Gong Xiaozhu's words. If she compromised and was willing to have a good talk, Gong Xiaozhu's motive would be achieved. So no matter if she agreed or not to talk to them, to Gong Xiaozhu, this was 100 benefits and no harm at all. "You. What are you doing?" Gong Xiaozhu, who was stared at by Yiqing Luo's naked gaze, felt uncomfortable as her brows creased tightly as she subconsciously raised her hand to block her chest. Yiqing Luo's gaze was simply too naked and scorching hot, as though it was glued onto her body. Through her robe, she saw her body being stared at by a lady with such a gaze. Gong Xiaozhu felt that it was very strange. Yiqing Luo suddenly grinned as she revealed an evil smile. "Since Princess has already said so, looks like we have no choice but to talk." Her gaze swept across as she looked at Gu Yun. "Prepare the tea. Let's take a look at what they want to discuss with me by creating such a big scene." Gu Yun hesitated as she looked at those few people and then at her own eldest Mississippi. In the end, she bowed and went to prepare the tea and snack. Yiqing Luo's disheveled appearance was covered in dirt as she walked towards the meeting hall in the other direction. The few of them looked at each other again. Immediately after, they started walking at the same time as they followed behind Yiqing Luo. During this period of time, Yiqing Luo had memorized the geographical location of the Gu residence in her mind. She accurately found the meeting hall as she pushed the door and walked in. There was a solemn and cold atmosphere in the meeting hall. It should have not been used for a long time, but every day there would be servants coming in to clean up. Yiqing Luo sat down directly. "Before my patience runs out, quickly say what you want to talk about." The few of them hesitated for a moment. They started to find chairs to sit down. The few middle-aged men's gazes looked towards the elderly man. Apparently they were following the elderly man's lead. The elderly man's face, which was filled with wrinkles, was filled with seriousness and pretentiousness. His brows were tightly knitted into a bundle as his penetrating gaze fell onto Yiqing Luo without blinking. "Since eldest Miss is willing to talk, I won't beat around the bush," the old man said. He knew that if he beat around the bush, the girl would probably make things even more complicated. Perhaps it was because after a round of insults, nothing could be heard. The elder said bluntly, "Shouldn't you explain to the Rin family why you poisoned the second young master of the Rin family?" This old man was indeed the representative of the Rin clan. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she propped up her chin. "Don't you know that your second young master Rin willingly got poisoned?" Naturally, she could tell the cause of Rin Jianming's poisoning. In order to get close to her, he didn't hesitate to poison himself and suffer pain. So before Yiqing Luo left, she specially passed the antidote to Rin Jianming. She didn't want to have any other relationship with Rin Jianming. In exchange for a bottle of antidote, Gong Xiaozhu would lower her head. But, he had to admit, this Rin Jianming's willpower was rather strong. That kind of inhuman torture, he could even withstand it. Of course, Yiqing Luo had never felt that the reason why Rin Jianming did this was because he liked her and admired her, hence he tried ways and means to get close to her. There was a motive behind this. Chapter 4296. The elderly man was choked by Yiqing Luo's words as his face flushed red again. "You lass, you really have no sense of shame at all." Yiqing Luo propped her chin as she put on an innocent look. "How am I not ashamed?" The elderly man frowned as he knew that in terms of eloquence, he would probably be angered to death by her as he continued. "Second young master is our Rin family's glory. Eldest young miss poisoned him without any explanation. Isn't that unreasonable?" Gong Xiaozhu, who had been keeping silent, suddenly opened her mouth. "Since you said that it was Brother Ming who willingly allowed you to poison him, then you shouldn't have done it in such a vicious manner. Do you know how much pain Brother Ming was in at that time? Brother Ming had never suffered any pain since he was young. It's you. It's you who made Brother Ming twitch on the ground in pain. Seeing Brother Ming in this state, how do you expect those onlookers to think of Brother Ming and the Ren family?" Her complaints were filled with indignation. In an instant, it made the elderly man's expression stiffen as the gaze he shot at Yiqing Luo turned even colder. "Tsk." Yiqing Luo couldn't help but clicked her tongue. When he looked at Gong Xiaozhu, there was a deeper meaning in his eyes. This Gong Xiaozhu was really different now. Even these sounded as though she was feeling injustice for Rin Jianming, feeling indignant and angry for him. In actual fact, she was indirectly telling the Ren family's elderly that the poison that Rin Jianming was inflicted with wasn't a small poison. Bearing this in mind, she dragged the Rin family down, saying that it was this lady who caused the Rin family to lose their face. Based on Gong Xiaozhu's intelligence, she actually knew how to say these words? Could it be that she had underestimated Gong Xiaozhu? At such a young age, her heart is already so vicious. It makes me suspect that eldest young miss is trying to take the opportunity to poison Rin family's second young master. The other middle-aged man suddenly stood up at this moment, as he used a suspicious gaze to look at Yiqing Luo, guessing, "Just like how you poisoned the princess previously, you're trying to take the opportunity to claim the lives of the princess and Rin family's second young master." Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes as she spoke impolitely. "If I wanted to poison them to death, the both of them wouldn't be alive now. If you poison them, the entire heaven realm will not tolerate you. You were afraid, so you panicked. In the end, you had no choice but to hand over the antidote," the middle-aged man said again. Yiqing Luo was tickled by him. "Your imagination ability, even if you were to write a script, no one would be willing to accept it. There's no logic at all." "Enough." The old man's brows furrowed even more tightly as he sternly rebuked. The middle-aged man immediately fell silent and shrunk his neck. The elderly pursed his lips tightly as he looked at Yiqing Luo coldly. "Eldest young miss, since we've taken the initiative to come here, it's to settle this matter. We don't want to argue with eldest young Mississippi." As he spoke, his expression became increasingly gloomy. It was as if a layer of dark clouds had covered the sky. "Regardless of the reason for the poisoning, First Miss has indeed poisoned him and almost killed the second young master." The elderly looked at the rest of the middle-aged men. The other two young masters who were crushed to death by Xiong Batian also died in the battle between you and Princess Xia Zhu. So the two young masters' deaths are definitely related to you. No matter what, eldest young miss should at least give us an explanation for this? When the old man asked his last question, the old man's eyes widened. In the air, an invisible pressure started to spread. Chapter 4297. The elderly and the rest naturally knew that Yiqing Luo didn't have any profound energy on her. Under the pressure of this pressure, without any profound energy to protect her profound heart jade, an ordinary person was not able to withstand this kind of suppression. He intentionally released this kind of suppression. How would Yiqing Luo not know what the elderly was planning? It was merely because Gu Yun wasn't around now. No one could protect her. When the oppressive aura came crashing down, Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as her finger pointed forward gently. A dazzling red glow spread in the air like a flame. Swish! Directly burning in the air. Gong Xiazhu and the rest were shocked. That dazzling red glow bared its fangs and brandished its claws, following the fluctuation in the air as it attacked towards the elderly's direction. The elderly casually flicked his sleeves as he split that red glow apart. The middle-aged man who was sitting beside him stood up abruptly as he cried out in shock. This is real fire. The elderly casually struck that red glow onto the middle-aged man's body. Instantly the man's sleeves were ignited. The man was so frightened that he immediately fell onto the ground and rolled on the ground before he extinguished the flame. The elderly and the other middle-aged men's expressions instantly turned complicated and grave. They took a look at Yiqing Luo from time to time. Then looking at the middle-aged man who was sprawled on the ground with half of his arm obviously burnt. That was actually a real flame? They thought that it was just the fluctuation of profound qi. Wait a minute. Wasn't the eldest young miss of the Gu residence a waste? There wasn't any fluctuation of profound qi on her. Why? Could it actually resist the imposing aura that he released? The elderly's expression sunk as his face was filled with suspicion and probing. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she took out a blazing red feather fan from somewhere and placed it under her chin, while the other hand was lazily raised towards a certain direction. The slender, white, jade-like lotus root seemed to be plated with a thin layer of white velvet light. She only raised it for a few breaths. Everyone saw a ball of red appearing in their line of sight. That was a red bird the size of 2 palms. The phoenix feathers, which were overflowing with brilliant colors, were sparkling with a dazzling radiance. When it extended its wings, it was like a rolling flame. It was Yiqing Luo's battle pet, which could speak human language. Gong Shizhu's eyes immediately lit up. His eyes were fixed on Qi Yan. His eyes were filled with greed. It had only been a few days since they last met. This red bird had already changed into another form. Where was the bird that Zhang Xian had seen previously, the one that was called Trash? This battle pet. Not only did he speak the human language, he even defeated her god-tier combat bear beast. She had to get this bird. Gong Shizhu clenched her fists and her eyes flickered. He didn't even try to hide his gaze. Yiqing Luo casually glanced at him, and her lips couldn't help but curled into a ridiculing arc. Gong Shizhu didn't feel that there was anything wrong with her greed for Qi Yan. A powerful battle pet deserved a powerful master. The first miss of the Gu residence was merely proficient in using poison. But after all, he was just trash without any profound energy. What are you looking at? Look at your bird grandpa with this kind of eyes again. Be careful that I peck your eyes blind. Qi Yan glanced at Gong Shizhu disdainfully. The minute he opened his mouth, whatever noble elegance disappeared. Gong Shizhu was frightened by Qi Yan's vicious gaze as she shrunk her neck. But the desire for Qi Yan in her heart grew even more. Qi Yan flapped his tail and fell into Yiqing Luo's palm. Chapter 4298. Yiqing Luo's jade-like fingers gently caressed Qi Yan's body. The jade-like skin blended with that raging flame. Extremely compatible. The elderly's heart was slightly shocked, but he didn't show any expression on his face. Just now, that force which blocked the pressure he released, came from that battle pet? Naturally, the old man had heard about the battle pet from Gong Shiju. But he had not expected that battle pet to be so powerful. Yes, powerful. No wonder eldest young miss of the Gu residence was so fearless. Why? Still planning to stand in the dark and watch the show? Suddenly, a young lady's lazy voice rang in the main hall. Everyone's gazes fell onto the young lady in unison. They didn't understand the meaning of the young lady's words. The young lady's beautiful pink lips curled into an extremely faint cold arc. Her half-squinted eyes seemed to be plated with a piece of elegant afterglow. What's the use of the Gu residence nurturing you two trash? There's already someone looking for trouble with your master, and you're still hiding in the corner. What kind of turtle are you? The young lady's voice was clear and pleasant to the ears. But the words she said were bone-chilling. The corners of his mouth were clearly curved into a smile. But between her brows there was a chill that made one's spine go cold. When the elderly saw this, the expression on his face turned solemn. The gaze he used to look at Yiqing Luo was filled with probing. The others didn't understand what Yiqing Luo was talking about, but they inexplicably heard that she was scolding the people from the Gu residence. This young lady was probably too irritable? Scolding her own people? The few of them were looking around, trying to see who was the person Yiqing Luo was talking about. Moments later, under the young lady's smiling yet not smiling gaze, two figures, one tall and one short, jumped down from the roof. The two of them were dressed in black attire. They could tell that they were the secret guards who were hiding in the dark. Eldest young miss of the Gu residence was scolding these two secret guards? Was she trying to change the topic by criticizing the two secret guards in front of them? Finally willing to come out? Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as she looked at the two of them with a smile, yet not a smile. Gu Sanxiu's beautiful face twisted, she clenched her teeth and said angrily, "You trash, who are you calling trash? Also, don't think that you can call yourself the master of the Gu clan just because you're the young miss of the Gu clan. In my eyes, only Lord Bone Lord is the real master." Gu San. Hearing Gu San's words, Gu San's face sank, and he immediately shouted to stop Gu San. He stretched out his hand and pulled out a bone 3. However, he was too slow. The middle-aged men sitting beside him all had strange expressions on their faces after hearing Gu San's words. Were these really the secret guards of the Gu residence? As a hidden guard, he actually dared to talk back to the master of the Gu residence? He even dared to insult the master of the Bone Mansion? They all had different expressions on their faces, and their eyeballs were rolling non-stop. Could it be the first young miss of the Gu clan was actually not favored in the Gu clan? So, even the hidden guards of the Gu residence could suppress her? This thought immediately caused a certain emotion to surge in the hearts of the few of them. His vision kept shifting between Yiqing Luo and those two secret guards. Facing such a gaze, Yiqing Luo didn't seem to mind, as her expression was extremely indifferent. After hearing Gu San's words, there wasn't any change in her expression. She tilted her head as her expression was languid. Really? In this way, you will acknowledge him as your master, right? Chapter 4299. Towards Yiqing Luo, Gu San was filled with unwillingness ever since he first met her. Especially when Bone Lord used the excuse of, "Eldest young miss is a lady and you are the only lady among the secret guards, so you can take good care of her," as an excuse to stay by Yiqing Luo's side. She was a secret guard who risked his life. A secret guard who risked his life for Bone Lord. To protect a frail lady who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken? And a frail lady who appeared out of nowhere? Thinking of this, the disdain on Gu San's face deepened. Who do you think you are, trying in vain to usurp Bone Lord's position? Yiqing Luo's gaze swept and fixed onto Gu Yi. You think so too? Gu Yi was stunned, as he had not expected Yiqing Luo to suddenly point the spearhead at him. He remained silent for a moment as he grabbed Gu San and said, "Bone Lord asked me to protect eldest young Miss. I will do my best to protect eldest young Mississippi," the meaning behind his words. He actually agreed with Gu San's words. They were Bone Lord's secret guards. They would only acknowledge Bone Lord as their master. The reason why they were here was merely to comply with Bone Lord's orders. The few of them looked at these two secret guards' gazes as they became even stranger. From the looks of it, this eldest young miss of the Gu residence really wasn't pampered by Bone Lord. The secret guard's attitude explained everything. Then, could they totally not have any misgivings about Bone Lord? The few of them quietly exchanged glances. From each other's eyes, they saw the same answer. This seemed to be a secret exchange of glances. In actual fact, Yiqing Luo had seen everything. But she didn't have any reaction. Only half squinting her eyes, which were flickering brilliantly, the smile on her lips became slightly cold. "Protect? But I totally didn't see you guys protecting me at all." Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she continued, "You two secret guards can't even be compared to this little bird war pet of mine. Tell me, are you all trash?" "You." Gu San's face flushed red as he clenched his teeth and clenched his fists tightly. Yiqing Luo totally didn't give him a chance to continue speaking as she smiled and ridiculed. "Moreover, he asked you to protect me but you disobeyed his orders, so? Now, shouldn't you use your death to atone for your sins?" Gu San's face instantly turned pale. Gu Yi's solemn face also had a layer of coldness. The two of them creased their brows tightly as they stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo put on an innocent look as she shrugged her shoulders. "Am I wrong?" "Ha ha. That's right." The old man suddenly laughed and opened his mouth. His murky old eyes were fixed on the two hidden guards. As hidden guards, disobeying the master's orders is indeed a capital crime. The other middle-aged men also echoed, "Just like the dark guards trained by our family, the dark guards have to do whatever the master says. As a dark guard, they shouldn't have their own emotions. Even if I don't want to accept master's orders, but master's orders, even if I die, I have to complete it. Eldest Miss, such a disrespectful dark guard deserves to be killed." As the few of them were talking, their gazes were carefully sizing up Yiqing Luo's expression, as though he was testing Yiqing Luo's bottom line. Gu 1 and Gu 3's expressions alternated between green and white. Both of them clenched their fists and suppressed the anger in their chests. They could not refute that, because what these people said was indeed so. Dark guards were not allowed to have their own emotions, just as the atmosphere was in a deadlock. Chapter 4300. Gu Yun walked briskly into the meeting hall and stood in front of the two secret guards. Gu Yi's expression moved as his eyes fixed on Gu Yun for some time before he slowly lowered his head. "Captain, what are you doing here?" Gu Yun's expression was cold as she looked at Gu San. That gaze seemed to be reprimanding Gu San with, "What are you up to this time?" This caused Gu San's emotions to rise explosively. "Gu Yun, what right do you have to question me? Don't think that just because you're hugging her thigh, you're really the captain of the secret guards. In my heart, the captain is only Gu Yi." "Gu San." Gu Yi tugged Gu San's arm hard, apologized to the captain. Gu San gave a heavy harumph as he turned his head away. Gu Yi still wanted to say something. The girl who was sitting lazily suddenly stood up. In a split second, the entire hall fell into a dead silence. Everyone's vision involuntarily turned towards Yiqing Luo. She was like a natural-born queen. Every move she made was able to attract everyone's attention. "There's no need to apologize." Yiqing Luo's indifferent voice revealed a trace of coldness. She gently caressed the phoenix feathers as she lazily raised her eyelids. "Gu Yun as the newly appointed captain. Secret guards disobeying orders, disobeying discipline and offending their superiors, what punishment should they receive?" Gu Yun heard the faint anger in Yiqing Luo's tone. She took a look at the pale-faced Gu San and Gu Yi whose expression wasn't too good as she pursed her lips and replied, remove the secret guard title and, as a traitor, execute the punishment of dismemberment by 5 horses. Yiqing Luo raised her hand as her fingers moved lightly. Then we'll do it this way. Gu Yun was stunned as her face was filled with hesitation. Her hesitation wasn't because she was concerned about Gu Yi and Gu San, but she was worried if Yiqing Luo's action would cause the other secret guards to retaliate. After all, this Gu Yi had been the captain for 10 years. In the Gu residence's secret guards, most of them were brought up by him. If Yiqing Luo moved Gu Yi during the period when Bone Lord wasn't in the residence, she was worried that those secret guards would explode because of this. Yiqing Luo saw through Gu Yun's thoughts as her lips curled upwards, her smile bright and beautiful. You're now the captain of the secret guards, no need to worry. Gu Yun's expression was complicated, but she still obeyed Yiqing Luo's command as she turned around to look at the 2 people behind her. Her expression was extremely solemn, without the slightest emotion. Gu San realized that Gu Yun was serious. Her face instantly turned pale and her body trembled with all her might. You can't do this. Gu Yun, Gu Jun is not in the residence now. If you dare to touch us, not you guys, it's you. Yiqing Luo indifferently interrupted her words. Gu San's pupils suddenly widened as he stared venomously at Yiqing Luo. You dare? You can feel for yourself whether I dare or not. Yiqing Luo smiled wickedly. Eldest young miss. Gu San frowned as he took a look at Gu San and cupped his fists towards Yiqing Luo. However, he did not finish his words. The young girl had already decisively interrupted his words. I spared your life because I admire your strength. It's quite a pity for you to die like this. Moreover, you're quite polite. He was demoted from his position as the captain of the Dark Guard. Although he was unwilling, but he still abided by his duty. Towards Gu Yi, Yiqing Luo didn't have much opinion. Her motive was merely to get that annoying female secret guard to death. Why did a woman make things difficult for another woman? Creating trouble time and time again. Chapter 4301. According to her past experiences, Yiqing Luo expressed that she should directly kill this weirdo. She could save a lot of trouble. No matter how small the mosquito was, it was rather annoying to keep buzzing around. Gu Yi's pleading words were stuck in his throat. Looking at the young lady's languid expression, his lips moved. But, one more word and you will die together with her. Yiqing Luo impatiently interrupted him once again. Gu Yi pursed his lips as his brows creased into a bundle. Finally, he kept his mouth shut. Not because he was afraid of death, but he knew clearly that Yiqing Luo would not change her decision easily. According to what Gu Yun said, it wasn't scary to be dismembered by 5 horses. What was scary was to be stripped of the secret guard's name and to be labeled as a traitor. What the secret guards were most afraid of was to be labeled as a traitor. Gu San had obviously thought of this as well. Seeing that Gu Yi really had no intention to speak, her twisted face turned pale like paper. You can't do this. You have no right to do this. Gu Yun directly went forward and locked Gu San's arm with one hand, and with a backhand, she pressed it behind her back. Gu Yi's body moved as he looked at Gu San, wanting to say something, but his lips squirmed for some time. He still moved away without saying a word. This servant shall take her leave. Gu Yun locked Gu San, bowed towards Yiqing Luo and left. Yiqing Luo lazily brushed her hair and sat back on her seat as she gave an insincere smile. I'm so sorry to have let everyone see such a joke. Everyone's faces darkened. It wasn't like earlier when they helped to make Yiqing Luo teach the 2 secret guards a lesson. That time when they helped, it was merely to create trouble on purpose. They were certain that Yiqing Luo was a young lady and had just arrived at the Gu residence, so she definitely wouldn't dare to create any huge commotion. It could be seen from the secret guard's attitude towards her. In this Gu residence, there were quite a number of people who weren't convinced by Yiqing Luo's appearance. But they had not expected. Yiqing Luo actually directly made Miss Yun take action. Without any hesitation, she took action. As though killing a secret guard, to her, was merely killing an ant. One had to know that from the conversation between Gu Yun and the two shadow guards, one could tell that the male secret guard was once the captain of the secret guards, but Yiqing Luo had forcefully seized his authority. A female dark guard who could follow the dark guard captain naturally had a high level. However, the first miss of the Gu residence had been killed just like that. Could it be that she was not afraid that her actions would be too arrogant and cause the entire Gu residence to be dissatisfied? Everyone carefully sized up Yiqing Luo's expression. The girl was still as calm and composed as ever. Everyone's hearts were inexplicably on edge. Just now, the young girl's actions, could it be that she was purposely killing the chicken to warn the monkey, to take them down a notch? It was an invisible message to them. She, the first miss of the Gu residence, was fearless? Why are all of you staring at me for? Yiqing Luo sensed their gazes and raised her brows slightly as she looked over. The few of them retracted their gazes in a panic. Their bodies were tense as they sat up straight. Yiqing Luo. Was she that terrifying? Why did he look at her as if he was looking at a monster? She was a weak wastrel without the strength to even truss a chicken. If Yiqing Luo knew what those people were thinking in their hearts, she would definitely have a look of disdain and ridicule, expressing that they were thinking too much. She had called Gu 1 and Gu 3 out at this moment, was merely to let these people bear witness. After all, this place wasn't her turf. To kill the Gu residence's secret guards. Chapter 4302. Gu San dared to frown at her, his current master, in front of outsiders. This was enough for her to have an excuse to kill Gu San. Even when others mentioned this matter, they would only say that she was helping the Gu residents to clean up the house. After all, as a secret guard, going against one's superior was a capital offense. By then, even if the barbaric Blood Bone King asked, she would have an explanation. Surely she couldn't just kill someone else's man for no reason. On the other side, the crowd who had retracted their gazes, after they had done their subconscious actions, regained their senses and couldn't help but gave themselves a tight slap. How could they possibly be afraid of a young lass? How could they possibly meet a young lass's gaze and be scared to this state? Ren family's old man's face sunk, as the hand which was hanging on the wooden chair, clenched into a fist shape. Since eldest young Mrs. Private Matter has been settled, now, isn't it our turn to settle our accounts? Yiqing Luo found a comfortable position to lean against, as one hand propped up her chin, as she squinted at Ren family's old man with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Accounts? I have no accounts to settle with your Ren family. Not waiting for those people to open their mouths, Yiqing Luo had already lazily raised her hand. Her jade-like finger slowly raised up one finger. Number 1, second young Master Ren took the initiative to receive my poison. He is a cultivator, and I am just an ordinary person. My speed of withdrawing the poison is not as fast as his, so him being poisoned is his own fault. What has it got to do with me? Following that, her gaze directly swept past the stiff Ren family's old man, as she looked towards the other middle-aged men. The second finger was raised. Number 2, the battle pet battle, was suggested by Princess. The one who smashed your young master to death is also Princess's battle pet. What has it got to do with me, and what has it got to do with my little battle pet? Haven't you seen your young master's corpse? Do you think with my little battle pet's size, it can smash your young master into minced meat? The middle-aged men were choked till they couldn't say a single word. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes with a look of disdain. A bunch of retards, trying to find someone to take the blame, don't use your brains. The middle-aged men. This young lady's mouth really couldn't say anything good. Someone wanted to open his mouth to refute Yiqing Luo. But the minute he recalled Yiqing Luo's indifferent expression earlier, directly asking Miss Yun to drag that secret guard down and execute the punishment of dismemberment, the words that were about to come out from his mouth were swallowed back unfathomably. The atmosphere in the hall immediately fell into a strange silence. A few breaths later, Gong Xiezhu suddenly raised his head with a livid and hideous expression. His eyes were filled with intense disgust and hatred. Every single word of eldest miss is trying to clear her name of responsibility. But, eldest miss, have you forgotten that there were at least 100 onlookers that day? If there were only 1 or 2 people who believed that this matter had nothing to do with you, we wouldn't have come to you today. But if over 100 spectators all think that you should take responsibility for what happened that day, then, this proves that whether it is the Ren family or the Zhao and Li families, you have an undeniable responsibility. Gong Shizhu said and stood up excitedly. It's a fact that Brother Ming was poisoned, and it's also a fact that he almost fainted from the poison. Xiong Batian smashed the Zhao and Li family's young master because your battle pet used its beast power to flip Xiong Batian, causing Xiong Batian to lose his balance. Chapter 4303. Gong Xiaozhu's voice turned crazier and crazier as her eyes shone with a maniacal glint. Return my Xiong Batian to me. If Xiong Batian disappears, then use your war pet to pay for it. Yi Qing Luo. Talking about Xiong Batian at such length, in actual fact. The last sentence was the main point, right? Was she still dreaming of her Qi Yan? Heh. Did Gong Xiaozhu think that her Qi Yan was so easy to contract? Alright, it seemed that it was rather easy for her to contract Qi Yan. After all, Shao Qi was there to help. But, even if she contracted Qi Yan, there weren't many people who could get along with Qi Yan. Sigh, mentioning Shao Qi. She missed everyone in the pet space. Alas, she who had no profound energy was unable to form a mental link with the pet space. Luckily, there was a little Qi Yan to accompany her. It allowed her to have a familiar companion by her side in this inexplicable heaven realm. Yi Qing Luo played with Qi Yan's wings as her brows slowly rose. Her gaze was calm as she swept a glance at Gong Xiaozhu. Gong Xiaozhu's expression was calm and tranquil. His gaze moved very quickly, without much emotion, as though she didn't put Gong Xiaozhu in her eyes at all. The truth was indeed so. After the young lady shifted her gaze, her voice was very languid. Since that's the case, then we can't come to an agreement. Gong Xiaozhu's back, for some reason, seemed to be covered with a layer of frost the moment the young lady's gaze swept past. That cold tone of voice also exuded a terrifying chill. Gong Xiaozhu's heart suddenly tightened. Immediately after, she heard the young lady continued, "If we can't come to an agreement, then please leave. Whatever you want to do, just bring it on." These words were obviously considered as provocation and clamoring. But when the young lady said these words expressionlessly, the few of them felt an indescribable chill in their chest. Gong Xiaozhu's body stiffened as her limbs turned icy cold. But she forced herself to look at Yi Qing Luo as her voice trembled slightly. "Eldest young Mrs. Meaning is. You want to represent the Gu residents to go against the Zhao and Li family, Ren family and the royal family?" As she said that, her gaze shot towards the expressionless Gu Yi who was standing by Yi Qing Luo's side. Apparently she knew that Gu Yi wasn't convinced by Yi Qing Luo wholeheartedly, so she intentionally used the bone manner to provoke Gu Yi. However, Gu Yi was still expressionless, and he did not even raise his eyes. Yi Qing Luo naturally understood Gong Xiaozhu's motive. She sneered and her lazy eyes finally fell on Gong Shizhu. She smiled and said in a clear voice, "Aren't you tired of passing messages like this? Wouldn't it be more convenient to let the person behind you come out and talk to me face to face?" There was a hint of ridicule in her tone. Gong Shizhu's face turned pale and she shrank back. What do you mean by that person behind me? Princess Xiaozhu, with your intelligence, you won't understand. Yi Qing Luo didn't even have the desire to answer her. If the person behind you still wants to be a coward, then directly send the guest off. These people could still maintain their composure in front of her, who was covered in dirt. She was covered in dirt and was in a sorry state. But there was no way she could maintain her composure. Not being able to see the person behind Gong Xiaozhu, Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste her bathing time with this bunch of retards. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she directly stood up and was about to leave the meeting hall. Suddenly, an extremely melodious clear voice was heard from outside the door. "You're indeed the eldest young miss of the Gu residence, indeed intelligent." That was a lady's voice. Chapter 4304. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked towards the direction of the voice. The meeting hall's door was opened and a slender figure walked in slowly. The sunlight outside shone on the lady's exquisite beauty, as though it had coated the lady with a layer of fluorescent light. This lady didn't seem like an ordinary lady. She exuded the style of a strong woman from head to toe. Especially that pair of ink-black eyes, which carried the dignity of a superior. Just one look was enough to make one feel respect and awe. Her dressing wasn't ostentatious. Although it wasn't simple, but it wasn't complicated either. One could tell that this was a lady with her own independent thoughts. Yiqing Luo was sizing her up. The lady was also sizing Yiqing Luo up. As both of their gazes intersected, there seemed to be some kind of different sparks in the air. When everyone saw the person, they all stood up abruptly. Ren family's old man bowed respectfully towards that person, eldest young Mississippi. The others also greeted her respectfully, eldest young Miss Ren. The few of them also greeted her respectfully, eldest young Miss Ren. The few of them's voices broke the undercurrent surging between the both of them. Yiqing Luo half squinted her eyes as she revealed a deep meaning. She knew that when she saw Gong Xiaozhu a few days ago, she was a big-breasted, brainless idiot. Today, every single word and sentence was on point. It was this lady who taught Gong Xiaozhu how to speak behind her back. Ren family's eldest young miss, Ren Jianming's elder sister? Eldest young miss. This form of address really had an extraordinary meaning. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes slowly rose as her lips curled into a faint arc. Eldest young Miss Ren, right? Since eldest young miss is so curious about me, why don't you do it yourself? Why must you make use of a fool to do it for you? When she said the word fool, Yiqing Luo's gaze intentionally shot a glance towards Gong Xiaozhu. Gong Xiaozhu was both angry and anxious. Who are you calling a fool? I'm talking about whoever replied earlier. Yiqing Luo gave a fake smile. Gong Xiaozhu's face flushed red as she clenched her fists tightly as her body trembled in anger. Don't think that you can continue to be arrogant. With Sister Ying around, who do you think you are? Xiaozhu. The woman spoke and glanced at Gong Xiaozhu indifferently. Gong Xiaozhu's face turned even redder, but she obediently shut her mouth and lowered her head. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. This young mistress of the Ren family seemed to be something. From the looks of it, compared to Ren Jianming, he was much more formidable. He could even call Gong Xiaozhu's name directly. First Miss of the Gu clan. Ren family's eldest young Miss Ren Jianming's beautiful eyes met with Yiqing Luo's, as both of their eyes were probing each other. I'm only curious, what kind of lady does my arrogant brother fancy? Yiqing Luo leaned lazily against the back of the chair as her lips curled indifferently. Sorry, I don't fancy your brother. His words shocked the surrounding people, causing their bodies to stiffen and their scalps to go numb. Did this girl know what she was talking about? Looking down on second young Master Ren? She didn't know how many people and clans in the Heaven Realm were thinking of ways to send their daughters to the Ren clan. He was a cultivation prodigy that only appeared once in 100 years. He was also the person who would become the head of the Ren family in the future. Furthermore, did she know that the person she was facing now was the current head of the Ren family, eldest young Miss Ren? Everyone in the old city knew about it. Chapter 4305. In front of the eldest miss of the Ren family, she said that she didn't fancy the brother she was so proud of. Eldest miss of the Gu residence really had guts, but while everyone was in shock, the girl that they were thinking about was still smiling faintly. Ren Jianming's expression sunk slightly. Do you know who is the person whom you rejected? Not interested to know. Yi Qing Luo was indifferent. Eldest Miss of the Gu residence, as a person, you need to leave a way out for yourself. Ren Jianying's tone revealed some coercion, although Bone Lord had brought you back to the Gu residence, but in this heaven realm, if you want to adapt, you still need to abide by the heaven realm's rules. Yi Qing Luo's gaze changed slightly. It wasn't because of Ren Jianying's threat, but Ren Jianying's meaning seemed to be that she knew that she wasn't someone who was in the heaven realm right from the start. Did Ren Jianying know that she was brought up from the earth realm by the barbaric Blood Bone King? Seeing that Yi Qing Luo didn't reply, the stern lines on Ren Jianying's face softened slightly. Eldest Miss of the Gu residence is intelligent and has a forthright character. Although you don't have any profound energy, but you are worthy of my Ren family. Since my brother has taken a liking to you, I will respect my brother's foresight. When Bone Lord is back, I will discuss with the Gu residents about our marriage. Yi Qing Luo. Why was it that no matter where she went, she couldn't escape the curse of being mysteriously engaged? She rolled her eyes. Since you like your younger brother so much, why don't you just marry him? Why put on an act in front of me? That sentence shocked the surrounding people so much that their spines turned cold as their palms were filled with cold sweat. What on earth was this eldest miss of the Gu residence saying? Actually wanted eldest Miss Ren to marry second young Master Ren? How did she come up with such an earth-shattering idea? Ren Jianying's expression congealed as her expression turned black. Eldest Miss of the Gu residence, you can't talk nonsense. Jianming is my brother. Yi Qing Luo crossed her legs as she was smiling, but there wasn't any hint of a smile in her eyes. Anyway, I have no interest in your brother. If you want to find a wife for your brother, go ahead and marry her yourself. Don't drag me into it, I have no time to bother about you. Ren Jianying's expression turned gloomy. She lifted her feet and walked towards Yi Qing Luo. With a formless pressure, it poured down in torrents. That exquisite and beautiful face was also filled with a fierce aura. Does the first young miss of the Gu clan really think that the Gu clan can do whatever they want? Her voice was very cold. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as her charming eyes looked at the lady who was getting closer to her, as her expression remained unchanged. I don't know if the Gu residents can cover the sky with one hand, but I know that the Ren family doesn't have that ability. He was just 3 steps away from Yi Qing Luo. Ren Jianying suddenly stopped in her tracks. Gu Yi's figure, at this instance, shifted to the front of Yi Qing Luo, blocking in front of her. Ren Jianying's flamboyant and beautiful face was filled with some incomprehensible emotions. I've always heard rumors about the young miss of the Gu clan. Seeing you today, it seems that you're not much different from the rumors. I've finally learned something. Well said, well said. Yi Qing Luo replied casually. Chapter 4306. The feather fan in Yi Qing Luo's hand swayed slightly and pressed against her alluring pink lips. Return the same words to eldest young Miss Ren, don't cry and beg me when the time comes. Ren Jianying snorted coldly. She straightened her back, raised her chin slightly, and walked towards the door. Let's go. The few people who were frozen in place felt their legs go soft. Seeing that Ren Jianying had already walked to the door, he staggered and followed her. Gong Xiazhu walked at the back with a ferocious expression on his face. When she stepped out of the meeting hall's main door, she turned her head around and stared venomously at Yi Qing Luo. Very quickly, Gu Yun came forward and turned her head to look at the door while approaching Yi Qing Luo with concern. Eldest young miss, are you all right? Do I look like someone who will get into trouble? Yi Qing Luo spread out her hands lazily and said with a smile. Gu Yun looked in the direction of the door again. Her expression was a little grave. Eldest miss, why do you think they came here? Probing. Yi Qing Luo smiled. Probe? Gu Yun was puzzled. Probe what? They are investigating the background of this eldest young miss who suddenly appeared in the Gu residence. They also want to know what my position in the Gu residence is. Yi Qing Luo explained. Gu Yun nodded in understanding. For example, the Bone Mansion was a force that had absolute power in the Heaven Realm. Any random person who appeared beside Bone Lord would be the center of attention in the Heaven Realm. After all, Bone Lord had personally brought her back and announced her identity as the eldest Mississippi. It would definitely cause a sensation in the entire Heaven Realm. Gu Yun suddenly thought of something, and her expression changed slightly. Since they are here to investigate the position of the eldest Miss in the Gu residence, then, Gu San's actions just now, isn't it? Thinking of this, Gu Yun's face instantly turned pale. A hidden guard of the Gu residence had offended his superior in front of outsiders. He did not give the first miss any face at all. If those people spread the news, it was likely that not long later, the entire Heaven Realm would think that eldest Miss was not favored in the Gu residence. No wonder eldest Miss was so angry at that time. Obviously, Bone Monarch doted on eldest Miss so much that he even gave the Bone Residence's domino plate to eldest Miss. Was this not enough to prove that Bone Lord valued eldest Miss? Don't worry, eldest Mississippi. I will definitely punish Gu San severely. I will let the Gu Residence's secret guards learn a lesson. Gu Yun's eyes became fierce. Gu Yi, who had been standing by Yi Qing Luo's side, trembled slightly. However, he maintained a quiet posture with his head lowered and did not say anything. Yi Qing Luo's vision lightly fell onto Gu Yi, as her tone was indifferent. Do you blame me? Gu Yi went into a blank for a moment before he realized that Yi Qing Luo was asking him. His stern and rigid face was somewhat stiff. Was it strange? He couldn't tell what he was feeling. It was not strange. Gu San, who had always been by her side for more than 10 years, was ordered by her to carry the name of a traitor and die. It was strange. What she did was not wrong. Wrong, it really was Gu San. He was a secret guard. Shadow guards shouldn't have their own emotions. After a long time, Gu Yi lowered his eyes and said, I don't dare. That is to say, it's weird but it doesn't dare to? Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes twitched. Gu Yi maintained his posture of lowering his head as his lips moved, but he didn't know how to explain. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly, as she directly walked out of the meeting hall. Chapter 4307. Gu Yi raised his head abruptly. He stared blankly at the young lady's departing figure. In his pupils there was some kind of emotion surging. He couldn't understand the lady whom Bone Lord had brought back. She obviously had no profound energy, but she lived so wantonly, as though she wasn't afraid of anything. She looked vicious and merciless. But in actual fact, whether it was against Princess Xia Zhu or Gu San, it was all because Princess Xia Zhu and Gu San took the initiative to provoke her. That was why she retaliated. But to those who treated her well, for example, Gu Yun, was repaying with the most sincere kindness. Earlier, that sentence of hers was a reminder to him. Gu San's ending was already decided. After all, many outsiders had seen it. If he helped, he would only become Gu San's accomplice. Her reminder was because, earlier, when Ren Jianying approached, he blocked in front of her. Yi Qing Luo came out of the meeting hall. The first thing she did was to rush into the hot spring room to take a bath. Because of the previous incident where Ren Jianying peeped. At this moment, Gu Yun was guarding at the entrance of the hot spring room. Until Yi Qing Luo tidied herself up, dressed neatly and walked out of the hot spring room. Gu Yun held a cloak in her hand as she draped it over Yi Qing Luo. Eldest Miss, what do you want to do next? Do you need me to help you find out Zhao and Li family, as well as Ren family's next move? Ever since Yi Qing Luo mentioned that the group of them came to the Gu residence to investigate, Gu Yun's heart had been tense because of Gu San's matter. Yi Qing Luo sat on the stone bench, allowing Gu Yun to wipe her wet hair as she replied disapprovingly, No need, they can do whatever they want, don't tell me Gu residence can't stop them? Gu Yun's hand paused for a moment. If the Zhao and Li family want to take action on Gu residence naturally can stop them, but there's still the Ren family. She paused for a moment before continuing. Ren family's internal affairs are extremely complicated. Ren family's second young master, although his innate talent is outstanding, but because of his innate talent, he was pampered by the Ren family since young. He only thinks about eating, drinking and playing, totally without the temperament of a future patriarch. On the surface, the Ren clan is managed by the Ren clan's clan head. However, in reality, the true master of the Ren clan is the Ren clan's eldest young Mississippi. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, her originally closed eyes suddenly opened. No wonder she felt that Ren Jianying had the demeanor of a superior. No matter how one looked at her, she had the demeanor of a strong and valiant woman. Who would have thought that he would actually be this strong? The Ren family's second young master has always been idle, and does not have the slightest interest in inheriting the position of Ren family's family head. Many powers are saying that in the future, the Ren family might become the first female family head to be succeeded by a woman. Gu Yun saw that Yi Qing Luo's interest was piqued and continued. Today Ren family's eldest young miss came over personally. Based on Ren family's eldest young miss character, I'm afraid she won't let this matter rest. Yi Qing Luo touched her lower jaw as her pink lips rose slightly. Looks like this Ren family is quite fun. A glint flashed across her eyes. Did he have nothing better to do? Did he not have the slightest interest in inheriting the position of patriarch? He wasn't interested. Or did he not dare to be interested? Yi Qing Luo recalled how she looked when she met Ren Jianming. Between her breathing, she snorted lightly. Eldest young miss, before Bone Lord returns to the residence, if it's possible, it's best to avoid any conflict with the Ren family. Gu Yun reminded. Chapter 4308. But for the past few days, Yi Qing Luo was either loitering around the old city streets and alleys or cooped up in the Gu residence. He knew his place and didn't cause any trouble. While Gu Yun heaved a sigh of relief, she also felt a little helpless. Because during this period of time, from time to time, the second young master of the Ren family would enter the Bone residence. From time to time, it would appear in front of Yi Qing Luo. From time to time, he would create some romantic surprises. After the commotion in the Gu residence was over, there was a commotion outside. After the commotion outside, the commotion at home began. In any case, everyone in the old city knew that the second young master of the Ren family had taken a liking to the first young lady of the Gu clan. He was thinking of ways and means to pursue the first young lady of the Gu clan. It was also rumored that the first young miss of the Gu family did not like the second young master of the Ren family at all and had righteously rejected the second young master of the Ren family. However, the second young master of the Ren family was shameless and only wanted to win the beauty. This news broke the hearts of all the girls in the old city. They missed the second young master of the Ren family, and they couldn't bear to see him suffer even the slightest bit. However, in front of the first miss of the Gu residence, he had to lower his head and act like a child. His heart ached. As a result, all the young ladies in the old city held deep resentment towards the first miss of the Gu clan. Wherever Yi Qing Luo went, she could feel the sinister wind coming from her back. Yi Qing Luo. Couldn't she reject him even if she didn't like him? Only by rejecting their male idol would they have a chance, right? What was there to hate? Young miss, where else do you want to go? Behind him, Ren Jianming smiled obsequiously. He was carrying all kinds of big bags on his back and many small ones in his hand. Those were all. Ren family's second young master's beautiful excuse, bought for Yi Qing Luo, to make her happy. As long as Yi Qing Luo passed by, her eyes would stop on something for a second longer. He bought them all. He was so rich that he had no friends. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to stop her. In any case, this silly man was stupid and had a lot of money. Yi Qing Luo didn't even bother about him. Ren Jianming was really annoying when he started pestering people. However, when he became shameless, no matter how he was beaten, scolded, or given a face, he would still come up to them with a smirk. She had even tried using drugs to force him to retreat. Once the effects of the medicine wore off, Ren Jiaming could continue to pester her with a smirk. Yiqing Luo was really impressed by Ren Jiaming's thick skin. She really didn't know what part of her had caught Ren Jiaming's eyes that were growing on top of her head. She was a trash without any profound energy. Aside from her title as the first young miss of the Gu residence, Gu Ruoyun was not the only one. There didn't seem to be anything that could attract Ren Jiaming, right? However, with Ren Jiaming's status and identity, did he still need to find her, the young miss of the Gu residence, for a marriage alliance? Isn't the wind cloud list going to start soon? Don't you need to cultivate by following me around every day? Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at Ren Jiaming. It was only half a month away from the wind cloud list. Many high officials, nobles, and the participating profound practitioners were all training madly just to achieve a good result on the wind and cloud list. And this, Ren Jianming, who had vowed from the very beginning that he would come out on top on the billboard, was following behind her every day, doing nothing. Hearing Yiqing Luo's question, Ren Jianming's eyes lit up. His smile was full of flattery, and his eyes were bright. So eldest miss is so concerned about me? So afraid that the person you're going to marry isn't me? Eldest miss, don't worry, I will definitely be able to get first place on the wind cloud list, and then marry you grandly. Chapter 4309. Even if I don't cultivate, I'll definitely take the top spot on the excellence list. The more Ren Jiaming spoke, the more excited he became. His sparkling eyes blinked as he looked at Yiqing Luo, revealing an affectionate gaze. Even if it's for eldest young miss, this master will also work hard. Yiqing Luo. Get lost. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes. She would only talk to a lunatic if she was sick. Ren Jiaming was a lunatic. However, Ren Jiaming's tone was indeed full of confidence. Was this the difference between a genius and a useless person? The others worked hard, cultivated, trained, and improved themselves time and time again. As for him, he just wandered around here and there. He looked as if he had never cultivated before. However, he was confident that he would be able to obtain the top spot on the wind cloud list. Sigh, there was no point in being envious. If he had talent, that was his own ability. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about Ren Jianming as she continued to wander around the street. Wherever he went, there would be many onlookers gathering behind him. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about them. During this period of time, Yiqing Luo seemed to be wandering around the streets with nothing to do. In reality, he was trying to figure out the terrain of the old city. In her mind, she could already picture the topography of the old city. She knew exactly what kind of power they were and where they were located. At the same time, he also heard some gossip in the restaurant and learned some news about the major powers in the old city. This would allow him to better grasp information about the Heaven Realm before the blood-bone barbarian king. In this half a month, Yiqing Luo had yet to destroy the Gu residence. He could not be bothered to instigate the people of the Bone residence. Ever since the news of Gu San being dismembered by 5 horses, it had spread throughout the entire Gu residence. Everyone knew that this seemingly gentle and weak young lady was not like what she seemed on the surface. On the contrary, he was extremely arrogant. When he was insolent, he was even scarier than their Lord Bone's sovereign. All of them didn't dare to provoke Yiqing Luo. But after all, Yiqing Luo was an outsider. After Bone Lord brought the person back, he didn't stand by Yiqing Luo's side to announce it in front of everyone. Everyone's attitude towards Yiqing Luo was merely conforming to the norm. Today is the day that the 100 Medicine House is auctioning pills. Suddenly, the snake man behind her opened his mouth in surprise, and in a few steps, he had already jumped in front of Yiqing Luo. Ren Jiaming's face was full of excitement. Eldest miss, let's go. I'll take you to the 100 Medicine House to play. Aren't you an apothecary? There are many rare herbs in the 100 Medicine House. You will definitely be interested in them. Following Ren Jianming's gaze, Yiqing Luo looked towards a corner, not too far away, which looked extremely simple and unadorned. At the entrance of the courtyard, there were already 2 long lines. There were men and women, young and old, and it was extremely lively. Yiqing Luo searched for information about the 100 Medicine House in her mind. It was the largest medicinal hall in the entire city, and it seemed that the power behind it was one of the 4 great families. However, no one knew exactly what faction it was. In addition, the 100 Medicine House was in the business of elixirs. Profound practitioners who cultivated basically had a need for elixirs. Buying pills from the 100 Medicine House was more or less giving face to the 100 Medicine House. For a long time, no one dared to cause trouble in the 100 Medicine House. Regarding 100 Medicine House's understanding, Yiqing Luo was only limited to the surface. She really didn't know about the day of the 100 Medicine House's auction. Usually, towards those rare and precious elixirs, Yiqing Luo really wouldn't put it to heart. Chapter 43:10. But now, do I have to queue up? Yiqing Luo decisively chose. Go. Who knows, she might really encounter some rare herbs. Ren Jianming's eyes lit up even more. He spread his feet and rushed towards 100 Medicine House. He threw all the big and small bags that he was carrying onto the apprentice who was guarding the entrance. Following that, he stuffed a bag of crystal stones into the apprentice's hand. Go, 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 send these things to the Gu residence. That apprentice was dumbfounded and only reacted when he saw Yiqing Luo walking over slowly. The apprentice took the crystal stones and left. Ren Jianming was relaxed as he stared at Yiqing Luo with his burning eyes, putting on a smile which he thought was suave. Eldest miss, follow me and you don't need to queue up wherever you want to go. Saying that, he stretched out his hand towards Yiqing Luo. Eldest miss, I'll bring you in. Yiqing Luo shot a glance at that long queue as the corners of her lips twitched. These people should be here to collect the free medicinal herbs from 100 Medicine House? Along the way, many people were discussing. She heard it all. 100 Medicine House would set up an auction for rare herbs at the beginning of every month, and on the day of the auction, they would also distribute 1,000 sets of medicinal pills or medicinal herbs. The medicinal pills distributed were mostly refined by 100 Medicine House's apprentices. They were some low-grade healing pills or to regulate one's breath, replenish energy, etc. Of course, the medicinal pills which 100 Medicine House distributed were all tested to ensure the medicinal effect and absolute safety. Because of this, many cultivators would run over to collect their medicinal pills. After all, not every cultivator was filthy rich. There were also poor cultivators. Ren Jianming's pretentious act failed, but there was no trace of embarrassment on his face as he maintained his suave smile and winked at Yiqing Luo. I can bring you to the VIP seats. Yiqing Luo placed her fan on his face. Lead the way. All right. Ren Jianming was all smiles as he walked in front, leading the way for Yiqing Luo. Ren Jianming's face was his pass. After entering 100 Medicine House, there was no need for a full body check like the other guests. The 2 of them directly entered the auction house set up by the 100 Medicine House. There were even apothecaries who came to welcome them. The apothecary arranged seats for them in the first row. This position was directly facing the auction stage, so the view was excellent. Exquisite snacks and tea were placed on both sides of the seat. Ren Jianming poured a cup of hot tea and passed it to Yiqing Luo in a fawning manner. Eldest miss, are there many benefits if you follow this young master? As long as you marry this young master, you can also enjoy these benefits. Yiqing Luo received the tea which he passed over and took a sip before rolling her eyes at him. It seemed that, since that time when she had a conflict with Gong Shizhu on the street and poisoned Ren Jianming's attitude towards her was even more enthusiastic than before. Could it be that this Ren Jianming was actually a masochist? He loved the feeling of being abused by her. Was that why he kept pestering her? After all, in the entire heaven realm, it seemed like only she would dare to bully him, right? Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's gaze towards Ren Jiaming was filled with a peculiar expression. Brother Ming. Suddenly, a woman's sullen low voice was heard from behind, and a slender figure rushed over in quick steps. The woman was dressed in a luxurious palace dress, and her dressing was dignified and elegant. But her face was filled with anger. Chapter 43:11. This lady wasn't she Princess Xiazhu? Yiqing Luo looked at the lady's gaze lazily. She sighed silently in her heart. It was indeed a law that couldn't be changed. Auctions were equivalent to creating trouble. It wasn't that she was meddling in other people's affairs, but there were always some retarded people who stretched their faces out for her to slap. Gong Xiazhu clenched her luxurious sleeves and looked at Ren Jiaming affectionately with her beautiful eyes that were covered with exquisite eye makeup. She pouted as she felt wronged. Brother Ming, didn't you say you don't have time when I invited you to attend 100 Medicine House's auction? Gong Xiazhu was about to go crazy from anger. Early in the morning, she opened the invitation that Yu Ying sent to Ren Jiaming. She hoped that Ren Jiaming would accompany her to represent the royal family to attend this auction. Because 100 Medicine House had always been doing good deeds. Every time they auctioned off half of the crystals, they would donate it to various places in Heaven Realm. He wanted to build shelters for all the profound practitioners, give them a place to stay, and give them a place to cultivate. The royal family naturally came over to express their gratitude. But Ren Jiaming used the excuse that he didn't have time to reject her invitation. But when he came here, she saw Ren Jiaming attentively serving tea to Yiqing Luo and even gave a fawning smile. Thinking of the rumors that had spread throughout the old city these few days, Gong Xiazhu gritted her teeth so hard that they almost broke. She couldn't wait to chop Yiqing Luo into pieces. Her brother Ming should be high up, like a celestial being. That slut from Gu residence actually gave brother Ming a hard time. Gong Xiazhu was so angry that her eyes turned red. But, towards her inner thoughts, Ren Jiaming apparently had no intention to understand. As his gaze swept over her, his expression became a little more indifferent. His tone of voice was also very indifferent. That's right. I really don't have the time to accompany the eldest Mississippi, brother Ming. Gong Xiazhu's face turned pale as she stared at him in disbelief. She didn't believe that Ren Jiaming didn't know about her feelings towards him. But he still hurt her heart. It must be that slut from Gu residence who forced him to do so. Gong Xiazhu bit her lower lip as her hands curled into fists. In the end, he angrily flung his sleeves and sat next to Ren Jiaming. Ren Jiaming did not care about Gong Xiazhu's existence. Following that, he looked towards Yiqing Luo as his face resumed his smile. Eldest young miss, if there's anything you fancy, just tell me and I'll buy it for you. Yiqing Luo propped up her chin as her long and narrow eyes wandered between Ren Jiaming and Gong Xiazhu with a smile which didn't look like a smile. After Ren Jiaming said this, Yi Shiwen's expression changed. Yiqing Luo could obviously feel Gong Xiazhu's venomous gaze falling onto her. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue. I wonder if this brat did it on purpose. He was quite good at attracting hatred. I'm afraid Gong Xiazhu won't let this auction go easily. As expected, everything was as Yiqing Luo had predicted. When the auction of the rare herbs began, as long as her gaze lingered on the auction item for a moment longer, Gong Xiazhu would raise the price. And because she had taken an extra glance, Ren Jiaming was determined to get the medicinal ingredient. Therefore, the two of them competed against each other. After a while, when it came to the fifth item, Yiqing Luo took another look at it. The two of them were still competing against each other. Yiqing Luo was always the last to make him give up bidding. Chapter 43:12. Ren Jiaming couldn't take it anymore. He wanted to show off in front of the girl he liked. There would always be idiots messing around. His expression turned gloomy as he cast a cold glance at Gong Xiazhu. Princess Xiazhu, when are you going to stop? Gong Xiazhu bit her lower lip, and her exquisite makeup couldn't hide her pale face. She took a deep breath, stubbornly looked into Ren Jiaming's eyes, and slightly raised her chin. I like it, so it's naturally mine. You like her? What's the point of you shooting these things? Ren Jiaming's tone was full of sarcasm. This was like a slap to Gong Shiju's face. Her face alternated between green and white. Her poisonous eyes looked at Ren Jiaming with hatred. How do you know that I'm useless? Only the first miss of the Gu residence is allowed to refine pills. Does our imperial family not have any alchemists? This was the first time Ren Jiaming had seen such an expression on Gong Shiju's face. In his memories, when he first met Gong Shiju's eyes were filled with love when she saw him. Ren Jiaming did not speak for a while. Yiqing Luo naturally saw this scene. She curled her pink lips into a faint smile, and her meaningful gaze fell on Gong Shiju. This Princess Xiaozhu, could it be that she had been corrupted? They were stimulated by Ren Jiaming. Ren Jiaming was even willing to glare at him? Did he hate Ren Jiaming? However, this had little to do with her. She didn't care about the development between Ren Jiaming and Gong Shiju. Yiqing Luo retracted her vision and placed her gaze back onto the auction stage. Compared to the entanglement of love and hate between the two people beside him, those medicinal herbs were more attractive to her. At this moment, a huge stone box was placed on the auction stage. The stone box was made of excellent material. It felt as if water had penetrated through ice. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows slightly. This kind of stone box should be carved from thousand-year-old ice. The medicinal herbs needed to be placed in the millennium frigid ice. Yiqing Luo was intrigued. Her long and narrow eyes narrowed. The shopkeeper of 100 Medicine House slowly opened the wooden box. Inside, there was a green plant that seemed to be dripping mist. The branches were roughly as thick as a finger, and there were countless fibrous roots growing out of them. They formed the shape of a mountain, densely packed and intertwined with one another. In the stone box, there were still traces of cold air floating around. In Yiqing Luo's mind, she instantly matched this medicinal herb with one of the contents in the 100-pill refining manual. Illusionary 3-dew grass. This herb. She had never seen it in the Nirvana realm. For this herb, the contents of the 100 refinement pill were very simple. High-level medicinal herbs, highly toxic, cleansing the bones, and even reviving the dead. Only one function, medicine. As for what kind of medicine it was not made clear. Facing these few lines of words, Yiqing Luo was speechless. If not for the fact that Zhang Xian knew the contents of the 100 refinements pill, he would have believed it to be true. She even suspected that what was written on it might be nonsense. Not only was it highly toxic, but it was also a cleansing method. How could he cleanse his foundation if he was poisoned? Can a highly toxic poison be brought back to life? Wasn't poison supposed to kill with a single touch? Also, why could poison be used as a catalyst? The catalyst for the poison? Just as Yiqing Luo was rubbing her chin, thinking about the real use of the 3-dew grass. Suddenly, a voice came from the side. This princess bids 5 million crystal stones. It was Gong Xiaozhu. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways, then met with Gong Xiaozhu's provocative gaze. So, that fellow saw her staring at the 3-dew grass, thinking that she wanted it. Chapter 43:13. Gong Xiaozhu felt that snatching the medicinal herb which she had her eyes on was considered as winning her? Wasn't that a little too childish? She could say that from the start till the end, the only thing which piqued her interest was only this stalk of 3-dew grass? 1 million. Ren Jiaming immediately raised his paddle. As he raised his paddle, he leaned his head over and looked at Yiqing Luo. Eldest young miss, you don't need to save money for me. I don't have many other things, but I have a lot of money. If she wants to snatch it, I will compete with her till the end. His voice wasn't soft at all. Gong Xiaozhu naturally heard all of this, whereas at this moment there was someone else who had bid for the 3-dew grass to 8 million crystal stones. Gong Xiaozhu directly raised her paddle. 10 million. 11 million. Ren Jianming hurriedly raised his paddle. Earlier, when Yiqing Luo stopped those medicinal herbs, he didn't continue bidding because he could tell that Yiqing Luo didn't have any special feelings towards those medicinal herbs. But earlier, Yiqing Luo had obviously stared at the illusion 3-dew grass for a longer period of time. Moreover, her eyes were filled with curiosity towards the 3-dew grass. Something which the goddess liked. He must get it for his goddess. Gong Xiaozhu pursed her lips tightly. 15 million. Ren Jianming didn't increase the bid as he just raised it by 1 million with Gong Xiaozhu. The others could tell that the undercurrent between the two of them was surging. No one joined in their bidding. Until Gong Xiaozhu shouted out a bid of 25 million. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and pressed Ren Jianming's hand, which was raising his paddle, as she glanced at him indifferently. There's no need to bid. Ren Jianming's eyes were fixated on Yiqing Luo's hand, which was pressing on his arm as his eyes were filled with agitation. His lips curled into a huge smile. He looked a little silly. The goddess took the initiative to hold his hand. Took the initiative to hold his hand. Hold his hand. And, agitated, he directly raised his other hand and shouted loudly, 26 million. The goddess took the initiative to hold his hand. How could he let the goddess down? Are you silly? Yiqing Luo released his arm as she glanced sideways at Gong Xiaozhu, who was preparing to bid. An indistinct teasing look flashed past her eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up into a sly smile. Without waiting for Ren Jianming to speak, she then said lightly, that piece of broken grass isn't worth this price. Princess Xiaozhu likes to act foolishly, so I'm just cooperating with her. She's a princess of the royal family after all. It's only right for her to do more good deeds. Ren Jianming stared blankly for a moment. His mind quickly turned. You mean to say you stared at the medicinal herbs on purpose? Otherwise, why would I stop you? Yiqing Luo raised her brows and asked. Ren Jianming slowly put down his hand that was holding the signboard. His face was full of disappointment. It was so hard to please the goddess. Was there really nothing that could catch the eye of the goddess? Their positions were very close to Gong Shizhu. Whatever Yiqing Luo said, Gong Xiaozhu naturally heard it all. She stood up in anger. First young miss of the Gu residence, are you playing with me? Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes rose as she looked at her lazily. How could it be teasing? Isn't Princess Xiaozhu's purpose of coming here to do good deeds for the development of the heaven realm? Gong Xiaozhu's expression sunk. The crystals that she had used in this auction had already exceeded the amount of crystals that her imperial father had given her. If there weren't enough crystals, she would have to deduct it from her princess residence.